Hello, hello, hello. You are very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. I am Daragh, this is Shane.
Hello.
Two brothers talking all things rugby from the point of view of Leinster and Ireland. This is number 107, well on our way to the million, 107 in at this stage, and this is going to be a fun one, as you know, this weekend. Tomorrow, indeed, as you're watching this, we do have the most anticipated rugby match possibly of the whole year. I mean, Lions tour here and then, but the 100th test between the Springboks and the All Blacks, that has been
pedigree.
Oh, it's been an intriguing discussion all year long, and it's going to be interesting. We're going to dig into that game. Oh, looking forward to this one for a long while. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely, as you say, we're going to open with the Rugby Championship because that is the main focus of it. We're going to start by looking back on round 4 and all the action from last week, as we saw the Wallabies doing the double over the world champs in emphatic style, and also the All Blacks carrying on their imperious road back to the top of the rankings list by seeing off the Pumas again. We're going to look back on those games, and then we're going to go into the meat of the show, which is that 100th test. We're going to preview that first. Springboks v All Blacks. It's just amazing. We've been teasing it all season long, and we're also going to look ahead to the Wallabies and the Pumas as well. That game also coming up this weekend.
Yes, 100%, and not a complete dead rubber, and not as open and shut as people necessarily think it might be. Sometimes the rugby mats gets a little spotty, and the Pumas have a decent record against the Wallabies, so we'll talk into that one as well. We're also going to look at the women's rugby qualifiers, which have gone on. Very interesting, sort of as we predicted, but not quite as we predicted. But it has been a malaise, that 4-team competition of 4 goes into 1 with extreme difficulty in this instance. All teams 1-on-1 going into the last weekend: Spain, Ireland, Italy and Scotland. Ireland dramatically with an excellent win over a very good Italian team. Have managed to get themselves into the driving seat after Spain slipped up against Scotland in what was a great performance from the Scottish women as well. So we'll be digging into those games too. Decisive fixtures are also tomorrow. Big day for rugby tomorrow, Saturday.
100%. But not just international rugby either. We're going to look at club footy as well. The top couture continued last week. The Premiership kicked off last week. And then this weekend it's the turn of the United Rugby Championship, the URC, getting underway on Friday and Saturday this weekend, and that'll really make the European season in full swing. They're the last ones to arrive, and we'll get into those as well. And we'll also look at that Rugby Europe Super Cup that kicked off last weekend, had its first 3 ever fixtures in the books now. So it is an official competition on the books, in the record books, and they have 3 more fixtures this weekend. So we'll keep you abreast of all the things that have happened in that too.
Absolutely, and we're also going to touch on the sevens. The Sevens circuit came back last week. Great fun, good little tournament in Vancouver. Just the 12 teams in it, and it was won by the Blitzboks in emphatic fashion. It was an all-African final, and we'll touch on that. And there's another event also in Canada, in Edmonton, coming up this weekend, and we'll briefly run through what's going on in that before wrapping up the show, as we ever do, with the rugby news of the week.
Yeah, that's right. And as always, if you're returning here, welcome back. Good to see you again. And if you're new here, please do like and subscribe and comment and all of those good things on the video. Every little bit of interaction there does really help the channel. So we prioritise comments as well. We do like a bit of discourse in the thread below. And if you have any opinions, any disagreements, any stern agreements, any counterpoints, stern agreements. If you want to double down that we were saying the right thing to someone else, you can get into all kinds of arguments down in the comments thread, and we will read them, and we will endeavour to respond.
Respectful and thoughtful. That's another approach.
You can do that. Do that. But do drop a comment down below, like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff.
Right, he's done. We're going to move on. We're going to get into the meat of the show, which is, of course, the Rugby Championship, which rolls on this week. We are now into the meat of it. Well, not the meat of it, the climax of it.
Yeah, the business end.
Well, you could argue the business end has come and gone. The All Blacks are 10 points clear of the Springboks heading into the last 2 weekends, but just 2 more rounds to go. It has been an interesting competition. There's been some thrilling games the last few weeks. The Bledisloe series was equal parts enjoyable and frustrating, but this series between the Springboks and the Wallabies was dramatic, and brilliant, and we'll touch on that game in a moment. But it's not quite back to where it was. I still think that an intrinsic part of the Rugby Championship and the Tri-Nations before it is those matches in Ellis Park and in Eden Park.
Sure.
as well as in Australia, and we didn't really get that.
No, that's true.
The pandemic is still very much alive in much of the world, and is unpredictable and unreliable, and so it's great still that these tournaments are able to go ahead, especially in the context of COVID in Australia and all of the issues they've had there. Definitely great of them to host it and get it going there. But I would love for next year to have the proper, like, we're getting there slowly, but I was kind of bummed out the other week to see that that stadium in Queensland, which hosted the double header, not Suncorp. There was great credit Suncorp.
Seabus Stadium.
The Seabus Stadium with a poor crowd in it for both of those two games, and I'm like, I would love to see them get the games back in New Zealand and South Africa as well as Australia and Argentina, of course.
The Buenos Aires crowd can be mighty as well. Yeah, no, you're right, and we're missing in some of those that pageantry, but the quality of rugby on display has still been fantastic. For us viewing it from a world away, we're immensely appreciative of those organising it. And then there's been jostling and changing. I think the All Blacks, as you say, 10 points clear. They've also just reclaimed the number one spot in the world just in time for their meeting with the Springboks in advance, so just to add a little spice to that mix. And actually Australia, on foot of their fantastic double victory over the world champs, have springboarded themselves up from, I believe, 7th up to 3rd in the world rankings currently as well. So
juicy couple of
all
wins.
kinds of jostling and going
so it's
on.
New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, the Southern Hemisphere teams in their sort of traditional order, perhaps. Although the Wallabies certainly in the 90s will dispute that, but up at 1, 2 and 3 in the world.
There will be disputes when we roll around to November. I think the Wallabies are meeting England in Twickenham, and England might have some notions in that as well. But
it's not just England. I mean, we're all looking forward to getting these all of these teams playing each other again, and less of the isolation. And it was great. It's great now for the Wallabies. We'll get on and go into that game, because wow, what a win this was! 30-17 win over the Springboks, and they
4 tries to 1, bonus point in the bag.
Yeah, they
deserved.
They were so on top of this game, really, from minute one. I mean, first of all, they've kept Tupou. They have benched that man for so long, and they unleashed him, and he was beyond awesome in this game. And
it seemed like wisdom as well, because they didn't have Alatoa on this occasion, where they'd been kind of jostling, having him start and Tupou unleashed, but they didn't seem to have as much faith in their bench man. But it didn't matter, because Tupou was in his Queensland Reds form, where he'd just be doing 80-minute showings and still being a standout player in terms of cardio, in terms of carrying and distribution, and explosivity into the second half.
He's a young man still, and he has a freakish engine on him for a man of his ability and size. Yeah. But I mean, what is he? 25 years old. But he's
young in prop years.
It is young in prop years. He's very young in prop years, and the temptation to keep him on the bench and allow him to be more explosive is getting overridden by the sheer quality of him. And he was explosive through 80 minutes this week. He was insane, as you said, like in Super Rugby AU. He did show that he could, when given a bit of a rest, perhaps he can go for an 80-minute shift. And I would highlight him. I highlighted him last week as the shover of the winning scrum, but it wasn't just him. I mean, the whole game they managed to dictate the tempo. It wasn't even like Karevi had a wonderful touch for that last try that they scored.
That gloss putting on Samu.
But it wasn't quite just him.
Corabetti was awesome. Grabbed a couple of tries as well.
It was the whole thing. It was the tempo from 9, the clearing.
Nick White came in and did a great job as well, and then McDermott was in for the last play, did a great job there as well.
The clearing of the rucks, the speed, the accuracy with which they were attacking. They just had that Springbok D on its heels all day long, and they kept the tempo high, and they never allowed the Springboks to get on top of them. And huge credit as well to that forward pack, because they just didn't take a step backwards. They didn't allow the Boks to get on top of them. Part of that was Tupou. Every good thing that they did started with some robust, still brilliant Tupou carry.
Phillip and then from Rodda in there as well. That's a shift to go against those Boks and in the lock department, and they did a great job. Nicked a few lineouts on them a couple of times as well. But the whole back row as well, their work rate, they completely outworked their opposite numbers. Valentini has thrived at this level, has looked great in the contact. Hooper, as always, just fantastic and indefatigable throughout. The one caveat is Lachie Swinton was very lucky not to be seeing a harsher card than perhaps for that particular. He's done that before. He's got red carded for the same thing, coming in head height and dropping the shoulder, and it's done, and he's out of the team this week for the next one. But that was the one blemish on an otherwise near faultless performance.
It let the Boks back in, but I mean the difference that was going on in this game was that the Wallabies were clinical and the Springboks were not. I mean, the Springboks in that first half did manage to get up into the right areas of the field 4 or 5 times, and they came away with 12 points. They kicked 4 kicks.
Yeah.
The Wallabies, by contrast, managed 2 tries in that first half, and then 2 tries again in that second half. 4 tries. The Nienaber stat, or the Springbok stat that we had up since 2019.
The binary code since 2019 smashed by the Wallabies.
No 0s and 1s, no 2s. 4 tries scored against the Springboks for the first time since 2018, I believe.
Perhaps at least
before
it could be even more. But it's an impressive achievement, and they did it by moving them about and being committed to attacking them. Ikitau, awesome in his role there, finding a really good partnership with Karevi, nice balance to it, because as we were saying the week before, the Boks were trying to overload him, trying to run over him, and he was more than game for it, and then he managed to run over a couple of Boks, run over Pollard himself for his own try that he was grabbing early doors. He looks awesome, and
2 tries for him. I mean, they got that Bok defense completely floundering. I mean, it was bizarre how often Pollard was finding himself in that 13 channel.
He was doing the job that Am normally does in terms of shooting out a line and being the solo contact, but he's as tough as he is, he's still a 10. You don't want him there, and he was getting sat down with the likes of Tupou and Valentini and a few other heads who were just running over him.
They were getting it so wrong on the Boks, and from their point of view, it is everything. It's the heart and soul of their game. They went away from it. They weren't bringing the kick chase game from the middle third. They were trying to move the ball to their credit,
and their passing wasn't as sharp as it might have been.
And of course not, because they haven't been working it as much, and naturally it's not going toe to toe with the Wallabies in that game probably isn't the wisest thing, I think, as they said in hindsight. But the issue that they were having is that they weren't able to be as quick as the Wallabies on D. Like, when you watch that Springbok D at its best, it is ferociously quick off the line and suffocating to an offense. An offense can't get it wide quick enough to handle the blitz. On this occasion, the blitz just couldn't handle the speed of the Wallabies. And they were moving the ball well. They had some smart moments to sit them down. Franco Mostert was really struggling in the 7 shirt.
I was going to say, they kind of overloaded him, and that was kind of where it kind of had the ripple effect of just discombobulating every aspect of it, because Dialinde looked wojus on his read the whole time, but Am, who's normally an assured defensive reader, found himself in the wrong position a lot of the time, mainly because they were running over Mostert in the open space. Like, Mostert's a very good player, and I can see why they want to replace Peter Steph du Toit with a man of similar heft, because that's what Peter Steph does, is as well as the pace that you get from like a Josh van der Flier off the line, he's also freaky strong as a former lock. But instead of doing the other option, which is match his speed and maybe sacrifice some heft, which I think they have pivoted to this week, they're going Quagga Smith in that jersey, which makes a bit more sense out here in Australia on the fast track, because he was looking like a leggy lock out there in that role, and that meant that Dialinde had no rock inside him. That's kind of that the first line of defence, so he was fracturing in, and then Am was doubting where Dialinde was because he was moving to cover space, so they were all over the place. And for that Ikitau try, I think both of them hit the narrow ruck, and then Pollard misses the tackle out in the centre row, and it's like just everything's completely discombobulated.
They have to do a lot more work to get the right people in the right positions, because Am of course is an elite defender. He's not finding himself defending the 13 channel as often as he was circa 2019, and as often as he needs to. They're doing a lot of rotation at the moment, and they really do back that idea of it just, the green wall, you just fit in and fulfill the role of where you are on the pitch. And
it's a noble trait, but too often it resulted in Pollard 1v1 against
we saw
a bigger
it last
man.
week with Faf. Faf was trying to shoot up on Karevi. It's just a terrible matchup. They need to work a lot harder to get the right people in the right positions, because good offenses, and they're facing the best one in the world this week, are gonna target them in that area. They're gonna isolate the moment when the wrong man is in the key shooting position and get after him. And that's what the Wallabies did to such great effect. And you're right to call out Ikitau. I mean, phenomenal player. Like, he really has grabbed that 13 shirt. They found the right mix of centres. They have incredible centre stocks at the moment.
Guys Paisami's been impressive when he's been in there, but he's out now.
We haven't even seen Irai Simoni, who was Ikitau's partner in the Brumbies, who's a very fine player himself.
Pataya has only been cameoing from the bench more often on the wing, but he's another great option and another great asset there.
Absolutely, So I mean, the stocks are through the roof, and Karevi just nails down that 12 shirt. He's so explosive, so brilliant. Even when he's kept quiet for long, he comes up with a play like he did towards the end.
Samu, and Samu's been awesome off the bench as well. Great impact from that man in the back row for them. But they outworked and outthought the Boks, and actually out-kicked and out-counter-rucked as well. Like that big counter-ruck at the end of the half in the
so
first
good.
half was like
Corabetti and Hooper.
Classic Springbok looking. It might have been Khaleesi and someone else.
Yeah, and it was Khaleesi on the other side
yeah.
of it. I mean, Corabetti gets the initial hit in, and the Boks have the ball for context if you don't remember the incident, but it's just before half time, and it's a dead ruck. Then Corabetti hits it because it's a little under-resourced from the Boks, and the Bok whatever Bridger is just knocked a little off balance, and then Hooper comes in, and just as soon as Hooper hits it, that freakish engine that he has, the whole thing just shifts, and Khaleesi comes in to try and stop it, but it doesn't happen, and then
a few more Wallabies join,
Valentini comes in, and then it's over, and it's Hooper winning out over Khaleesi, as he did over the course of the last 2 weeks. Michael Hooper just like the best 7 in the world right now.
He's the work rate out of him. Even in all of those Bledisloe tests, he was immense as well. Like it's crazy. The man he seems to have a teleportation device where he'll just pop up all over the pitch doing all kinds of things. And he's an amazing captain for them. But like just fantastic throughout. I thought Slipper as well did well in his starting role, and it's actually
he slipped once. I think, but that's what he does.
To be honest, actually the Safas were a little loose on their own scrum engagement as well. A little inconsistent with it.
Tupou came in and changed that game though. I mean, and they have a very good scrum coach at the moment. I don't doubt that, but I mean, the guy is a sensation. Like, he's one of the most exciting young players, if not, he's one of the most exciting players, if not the most exciting.
He's certainly one of the most valuable right now, as tight heads have become like massively important stocks, and there's going to be suitors for him, so that Giddo law is going to be strained by the likes of him, because like you could so see big clubs like Racing and stuff getting the checkbook out looking at his showings.
Yeah, and I'm so happy. I mean, from a Wallaby point of view, I'm so happy that because they
deserve it. Like they deserved it over the 2 games.
They colour themselves like they consistently have themselves in a negative light on account of having to play the All Blacks the whole damn time. 3 times every year, and the All Blacks are as good this year as I've ever seen them.
Yeah, certainly as good as they've been since 2015.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it negatively colours them constantly, and it's then hard to gauge where they are. But I mean, this has been now a tremendous season for them. They were 0-3 in Bledisloe. It was a very tough set of fixtures for them. They were well beaten in each, and that will sting. But between
they can console themselves that 2 of those tests were in Eden Park.
Indeed, which is no good. They didn't even get to have a go at Suncorp, which is obviously where they'd like to go.
Or even Wellington, they'd give them a crack in Wellington more readily than Eden Park. Like, that's as tough as fixtures get.
100%. That's true. But they had that series win over France. They've now had this 2-test series win over the Springboks. Going into this Argentina game with a lot of confidence. They are extremely talented young pool of players. A lovely mix of youth now and experience in the squad.
Guys like James O'Connor coming back in to bolster the ranks. Quade Cooper's showings have been impeccable. He took a few more contacts last week. They actually did get after him and trying to hit him, as we were asking. It was bizarre in week 1 that he was untouched, even though it was his first outing in Test Rugby.
Touched a few more times, and hence wasn't as polished, but from the tee. But still, like, they had way too much for them. The speed with which they're playing, the accuracy of their pass, the quality of that offense, mixed with, as you say, the work rate of that pack and the underrated quality that they have in the second rows. They are among the most exciting teams in the world. They are worth their 3rd place ranking at the moment, and I'm excited to see them. Like, they can now put like the All Blacks out of their minds for a little while. Like, they'll have another Bledisloe series next year, but between now and then they're going to play these games against Argentina. They're going to go up and have an end of year tour in Europe. They're going to have a summer tour next year. They're going to have a lot of time to play other teams to really develop this young squad, who are very, very exciting, and build some positivity before they have to face the demon monster All Blacks, who can tend to just bash them and get them feeling down about themselves.
It's not a great.
But they're a very, very good team. Like, they probably don't know how good they are.
No, I think so. I think Rennie has a suspicion as to how good they can be. But as far as the age profile, like, young Ikitau's 22. His first cap was against France in that window in June. So, like, look how much he's grown in the test arena since then. Like, there's shoots of optimism all over this team for Wallaby Rugby and for just the state of Australian rugby union in general. Like, it's much healthier than it's been for a decade.
I think
plus.
so. Yeah, they're doing the right things. They have a young, grounded squad full of talented players they're putting hard graft in and playing
a high tempo,
playing true to themselves,
and like attacking base, but very energetic, ball in play kind of game.
And to be the team to put 4 tries onto that Springbok D, it happened in advance of the
first country to solo country, whatever about the Lions, but country to defeat the world champs since they were crowned us, and you do it twice, and the second time you do it in more emphatic fashion. That's just unequivocally good from their point.
Yeah, and they are the holders of I wish I could remember the name of that shield, the Ransbury Shield, I think it was, the
lineal championship,
lineal champions of the world, and they'll put that on the line obviously every time they play. Just before we move on from this game, from a Springbok point of view, like, there was a lot wrong. We touched on their defensive issues.
Their halfbacks, Faf was all over the place for large
like
periods. He drove a great set for Am's try, which was on 42 minutes just after.
And that was vintage Faf.
Yeah, that was exactly
really
what you
from
want,
start to finish.
Bringing runners onto the ball, frenetic tempo, and then seeing the space and executing.
Yeah, and to be fair to him, that's something. That whole set was something that only a few scrum halves in the world can do, and he showed it then. But you're right in saying, for the most part, he was pretty damn loose. Kind of all over the place.
It
started with that frantic yellow card.
Yeah, you're getting carded for playing the arm, and it's like, you're a scrum half. You should know you're not legal in that position.
Do your homework. Like some refs with the penalty advantage will just let that go. Even Southern Hemisphere refs might give you like a head shake or a warning. But Matthew Carley, the prickly Englishman, like he
just said advantage, and then you did that.
Yeah, you've got to know who you're dealing with here. And I think Barnes last week would have done exactly the same thing. Or sorry, Luke Pearce, but Wayne Barnes himself would have done exactly the same thing. A lot of those English refs would definitely take umbrage with something like that. And
it's like, I just said advantage, you just infringed again. I'm sick of the side of you. Go for 10 minutes. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of prickly thing that you can get from an English ref, and it's fair enough as well, because it was so obvious, and it served as a good contrast, because it was a wogus and panicked start from the Springboks, and just a calm, like Nick White was delivering the pass cleanly, and like it was illegal, and he took that, and then they went and scored a try from the ensuing set, and it was just the calm and assuredness from both White and Quaid in terms of that partnership. They really did outshine a frantic Faf throughout, and Pollard like a little loose in his decision making. The kicks were certainly hooks, even the ones that went over were hooks from the place kick, and then he was just in far too many contacts. Like whatever we were saying about protecting Quaid a bit from the contact, like he doesn't protect himself from the contact, he carries ferociously, he tackles ferociously, but he was in Am's channel doing Am's work and centre's work and failing
wholly ineffective. And the other thing that I would flag as well is just that by the end of the game they looked beleaguered. Like they were always struggling throughout to be to establish their rhythm on D and to get on top of the wall. Like the Springbok D at its best under this sort of Rassie Erasmus Nienaber project, like puts on a much better performance than we saw at the weekend. From a defensive point of view, it's a real battle on when the Wallabies have the ball. On this occasion, the Wallabies were having the freedom of the field, and like towards the end of that game, like there was a moment in the build up to, obviously there was that lovely Corin Betty try which had featured the Tupou slip ball, which was just it was out the front, like he could have just popped it, but it was just a lovely example of the skills and the infectious energy with which he plays the game. But at the beginning of that sequence, there's just a really uncharacteristic defensive play from Dale Indy, who's actually on the edge, and they've got like an overlap on the. They've got an overlap.
Two forwards inside him, so he's the only one with the speed to cover the outside.
Exactly. So he makes the read that he's got prop, and then serious danger, and he's one man covering that space. And so he correctly identifies under the Springboks system that the thing to do is shoot, but he does it so slowly. Like he floats out of the line right up to, I think it's Angus Bell, who's the first receiver, and he kind of just floats up to him and allows Bell to get the pass away to Tupou, and then like from there it's gone. It's a try on the board. It's done.
He had two men outside him and only one defender.
The antithesis of what you'd associate with this Springbok D. I mean, even when it goes wrong, they're flying up. Like they are, like when you make the read to shoot and you've got an overlap and the game is in the balance, you are flying up to try and cut that off. And he just wasn't. And Dale Indy in particular has looked a little ragged the last few weeks, and a few of them, to be honest, look beleaguered, look kind of beaten up. They've been together a long while. I thought that last 10 minutes, when after they'd gone 2 scores down and the game was dead, but they were in a position to they were pretty much camped on the Wallaby line. Like they were really struggling. They were struggling to do anything. They couldn't get their maul going, and then outside of that, they just there was no
impotent.
energy to them.
Yeah.
And they're like, without energy, the Boks side just looks a really a sorry side.
Their whole game is built
Yeah.
on work rate and physicality, and it just doesn't seem, between the players they've lost, like Peter Steff is the crucial one who, like,
For sure.
I think in terms of what Dialinde is finding is, like, he's so sure of himself when Peter Steff's inside him and Am's outside him, and all he has to do is hold his ground and be a wall that people won't go through. Now he's finding himself making more reads and shifting in and out on account of there's no Peter Steff, and Mostert is not a good substitution. And they're just, the doubt with which they're kind of executing in this space since we've seen them in Australia is something that we haven't seen from them in this era. It's something they're going to have to try and fix coming into this big test this week, because it just doesn't look like they have their kind of sequencing correct in terms of how they want to defend. And when you have doubt there, it's very hard to commit one way or another, and then everything becomes slower. And you end up looking at Australia putting all kinds of passes together and having people scratch their heads going like, why didn't the Lions play like that? And it's like, yeah, well, there's part truth to that, but also, you know, it's a more weary, more battle-scarred Springboks at this point, and it's a faster track. Like, the conditions do play a factor, and we were citing the Boks' terrible record in Australia, and it just looks like the track they're playing on, a combination of it's just a little hotter and it's a little kind of drier, it's tougher to run that much yourself, and also the fact that your opponents in Australia are going to try and play more of an attacking brand because the conditions facilitate it, and all of their passing is just a fraction wider. It means your spacing as a 10, you can be a little wider, all of these things, you can use more of the field. When you're playing up in a Northern Hemisphere kind of game in a mist and a rain, you're going to condense the field, and it's just tougher to execute passing like that. Like, this is playing a huge factor in the way that these games are playing out, and the Boks just look not a match for certainly the Wallabies in the last 2 weeks, and it's going to be a tough old task of facing the All Blacks in Australia
for them to rise to themselves. Absolutely. And to look at the other side of that equation, from the 100th test, we had New Zealand putting together another solid win over the Pumas, 36-13, a raft of changes. Not too much to write home about here, except to say that the Pumas were like much better. Much better. Like, I thought way better, in fact. Like, Carreras in at 10, stroke of genius. I love it. I love it.
That cross kick for Boffelli's thing was on the money, but he also ran really well.
He's quick, and he's a winger and slash fullback by trade, so his instinct is to run the ball. And so he gets the ball and he wants to run it, and if he's not going to do that, he's going to move away from it.
On to someone.
And there wasn't quite evidence of much razzle-dazzle Checa stuff, but there was evidence that they've at least identified the problem. Like, there was some shape to them this week. Kramer was getting the ball.
They were folding into attack in shape. That was it. They were just quick to move when they had the pill, whereas the weeks before they were kind of sluggish when they had the pill, as if they were just expecting, we're going to go one or two phases and we'll kick it, so it doesn't matter.
They were also working it wide. Kramer was throwing passes, and then he had to completely stop to execute them. It was kind of funny to watch them do it, because it was like one of those screenplays, and he'd catch it in the forward pod, come to a complete stop, turn and pass. It was a little clunky, and hence wasn't a match for what this All Black team are doing at the moment, but was still very, very encouraging. I think
they found a lovely try against that All Black D, and that All Black D is often slept on because their attack is so nice, but they've been defending really, really well over the last 12 months plus.
Binary looking stats themselves.
They do, they defend really, really well. So to find a try at all, given their state of finding scores so hard to come by, was excellent, and the way it was executed. Your new 10, Carreras in, dropping it on the money. Boffelli, big boot Boffelli, kicked excellently all game and grabbed that try, grabbed all 13 of their points.
Made the read for that play as well. He called it and ran a good arcing run to get into position to take that cross kick. Had the vision.
It neatly.
He's a lovely player, Boffelli.
He should be in there.
They really need to keep him around. He's a
fullback or winger, either
somewhere in the team. He's got top class stardust to him. So does Chocobaras, and Carreras at 10 is just a solution I like when they don't have Sanchez, because it encourages them to run the ball. They've decent foundations on defense. We know they've good foundations at set piece, and they're developing now in attack, and we know they have in their blood, in their DNA as a rugby nation, they have the capacity to break loose and attack. All of these guys at a younger level would have been playing nothing
or
but
at a lower
rugby.
Level when they rock up in the Argentina 15 shirt, they tend to run the pill around against Chile and the like as well. So
although the Argentina 15 is struggling,
it's true.
They lost to Uruguay as well. They got going down, but that's a separate issue to do with the brilliance that's coming out of South America on a whole at the moment. But from a Pumas point of view, I was just way more encouraged. They didn't have a nil. They focused on getting points.
Yeah,
they were.
They were still erroneous to kick a 3-pointer at 24-3 down to go 24-6 down.
Yeah, but they just wanted points on the board after the
double
two
their
donuts.
scores,
After the two donuts,
indeed.
they just wanted to get some points up. I didn't begrudge them. They were playing decent footy.
They were
never going to win the game.
No.
And a part of the reason that they were never going to win the game is because this All Black team look insanely good right now.
And considering they changed so much this week, like it was a completely changed team. But guys like Blackadder stepping up, grabbing the jersey.
He was that was the real problem last year, was all of that chopping and changing in the midfield, and none of it ever kind of worked. They ended up stuck in the mud and they couldn't settle on the right combination. It was a problem.
Yeah.
But now you have guys like Quintu Paya slotting in and just not missing a beat.
No, he looked excellent. It's going to be tough on him because he hasn't been picked this week, but he's putting his hand up as well, and Anton Leonard-Brown's there as well in the background, and it's just spoiled for stocks all of a sudden. And same in the back row, guys like Blackadder popping up out of nowhere, guys like Big Tui Pilato, who was a stalwart in their team last year, and like it took him all of 5 minutes to remind us why. Like he crashes over 5 minutes in and sets his stall out very early.
I love that little play from Ardy in the build up to that as well, just because Kramer was very much the matador to Kramer's bull for that try, because he was just hovering a yard out from the line with his eye on Kramer, who was playing pillar, and he was just like and picked it up, and Kramer comes flying out, just flicks it to Tui Pilato, who just falls over the line right where Kramer was. And he's funny to watch. Kramer. He's all passion, but he is a bit of a bull, and you can certainly matador him.
Indeed. Well, the kind of wiliness and street smarts of the All Blacks is definitely something to pull him this way and that, and he was left flapping after defenders a few times more, because they did run them ragged. The only time it got disjointed from the point of view of continuity, like from kickoff, it was awesome. They still grabbed their obligatory pre-halftime score. They've done that
to work for that, but they made sure they got it. Like
42 minutes or something.
The way they dial in the skills. I mean, it was Ardy Savio up the touchline, dropping it on the toe, regathering the ball, and then the ball comes loose again, and Blackadder gathers it, and then TJ goes and rooks, and they're so focused on like, oh my god, we're in the red zone, secure this ball. We're not messing this up, and they took it through the motions. They were patient. Like they bizarrely compared to last year, they look both completely electric, which they didn't, and also patient, which they weren't. Like they look both of those things. They are supremely confident in their skill set
and their ability to unlock even very tough Puma defenses, even in injury time. The clock in the red, no second chance here, and they still, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying they've scored a try in that period just before halftime in every single one of their fixtures this year. I think they did it against Tonga, I think they did it twice against Fiji, I think they did it 3 times against the Wallabies, and now here they are doing it back to back against the Pumas as well. It's just an unbelievable track record of scoring in those championship minutes before halftime, and still icing the game then pretty much before halftime. I think they were 24-3 up at halftime, and the game was done.
Ian Foster's off-season chat is some like I don't remember ever flipping on a guy in an off-season who I didn't like. But
you were having doubts, and then he said.
Then I listened to him talking about the problems,
diagnosing the problems.
over the Christmas really, and then he was 100% spot on. The team has responded. The players in the nation have responded.
They were getting very process driven, and all the way dating back to that Lions tour.
Yeah,
that was way back when they were talking about, maybe we should be better at set pieces and mauls and place kicks
goals,
and drop goals and all of these things. And it's like suddenly you become just another one of the pack in terms of like Ireland and England and Wales and all are very competent at that particular game, and the All Blacks are also competent at that game, but they're not exceptional at that game. What they are exceptional at is the All Black game: catch, pass, skill, running the ball.
Since 2017, and possibly even since 2016, but their offense has stuttered at times, and when the chips were down, like their offense is still very good, but when the solution to that problem became lean on the physicality. We are very physical, and when the chips are down, we'll go to that physical game and blow teams away, and it worked to an extent, but it didn't get them over the line in the Lions tour, and obviously it came
saw them lose to the likes of Argentina, which they wouldn't have accepted as a possible thing. Indeed. So that was when they were leading on their physicality again. They only scored 15 points against Argentina, and they're like, what?
But it took them a few years, but they settled on fixing the offense and fixing the skills and discipline. Like that was a good mantra. It was a very good mantra for them, and they look absolutely sensational. Some of the line running in that early game, the ruck clearance is great, and it comes from speed. It's usually just one man hitting the ruck, but they work the ball wide so quickly. They get favourable matchups on one-on-ones, get over the gain line, one rucker, and the ball just, in terms of like
the
contact just happens on their terms.
Well. Yeah.
Scrummy's always there, ball is always clear, and that's when you get like those picturesque plays like that line from Geordie Barrett where he comes from a mile away off D-Mac early in that game to set up Will Jordan for the nearly try. Will Jordan for once didn't get over the line.
I actually thought he probably on balance had a better, more rounded showing. Like he showed lovely crisp hands for the tip on for one of the tries as well, and did find some seams with some scything runs, had a nice little kick in behind. Like did actually do a well-rounded kind of wingers game without finding his normal try, which is an unusual one for them. But yeah, no, they were pretty much, they were just better all over. Even their scrum was dominant as well. The few chances the Argentinians did find themselves in the red zone, they got scrummed off it on a couple of occasions in the second half as well. So that was just big, powerful stuff from their tight forwards as well, showing that like, you know, we're kind of the complete package here. We're not just leaning on our skills base. We're not playing sevens. We will roll our sleeves up and do work in the tight as well. Like they look just very, very sharp and well balanced. They know how to strike on their own set piece. They know how to disturb yours. They've been stealing lineouts. They were rotating their locks, still stealing lineouts. If they can do that against the Boks, they'll be laughing as well.
They've got
like
great lock stocks, absolutely. And yeah, it's built on offense, but quietly in the background, their set piece is phenomenal. They owned the scrum against the Pumas in this game. Madrano was turned this way and that by a Joe Moody of all men. Was doing all kinds to him, but even like Tupou in that engine room, just no weaker, really hefty, and we know about the quality of Tuipulotu as well. So yeah, just can't wax lyrical enough. I think they are awesome. I think they have looked head and shoulders the best team in the world, and hence will prove like a beyond formidable challenge for the world champions this week.
That's true. And yeah, just credit to Argentina as well. It's always tough getting, like 36-13 is a rough scoreline, but you console yourself with the fact that it's the All Blacks.
And it's par for just about anybody against the All Blacks right now.
And the fact that they played a bit more ball and got after them a little bit, kept the score down, kept it from being 40, 50, 60 plus as it could easily have been.
Exactly. Like they probably didn't defend as well as they did last week in this game.
But they didn't
spend
as much time doing it.
It's
like if you only spend 30 minutes defending, even if it's a bit worse than the 70 plus minutes of defending you did the week before, like you're going to concede a little less.
Exactly right. And they did, and that did keep the score down. The fact that they were able to put some sustained phases of play together. So fair play to the Pumas, but congratulations to the imperious looking All Blacks.
They look odds on to go and secure this rugby championship, as well as the number one spot in the world as of this game now as well. So yeah, congrats to them. They look mighty. But yeah, with all that said, that is round 4 in the books. I suppose we're going to bury the lead no longer, and we will move on to previewing some of these juicy games this weekend.
Absolutely. Yes. We are here. No more preamble. We are at the game of games, perhaps the game of 2021. Certainly the game that you would have flagged as the game of 2021, although some of the games in recent weeks between the Wallabies and the Springboks may have taken away their respective form of the two teams. Maybe points you to thinking that it's not going to be the classic game that we know it probably will be. The 100th test between the All Blacks and the Springboks.
Awesome.
Oh, does this even need any colour? Does this even need any dressing up? This is going to be this is the game we've been looking forward to all damn year. Matchup wise, intensity wise, rivalry wise,
history wise,
talent wise, like from a rugby point of view, from a historical point of view, this is the greatest matchup of all time on balance, and we're going to do it again for the 100th time, for the first time in a long time since the World Cup. The All Blacks are going to take on the Springboks. That's right. It's going to be quite a backdrop.
That's exactly right.
Queensland Country Bank Stadium, sorry to interrupt there, but we're going on tomorrow morning our time, tomorrow afternoon in Australia, or 5 p.m, heading into evening. Our referee for the day will be Luke Pearce, who's of all the referees out in this championship, he certainly, I think, is the best on balance. I think he's the most controlled, the best communicator, and the most up to date on the laws around the rucks and most consistent in that area. So I'm very happy with him taking the game. And then we have a few Aussies as the AORs and the TMO. Damon Murphy from Australia as well, who hopefully won't be that involved. But yes, this is the game, is it not?
It is, yeah. Coming to us at round 5, the 100th meeting of all time. Just a few stats to colour it. Obviously, it's been lots made of the 100th test. That goes back to 1921. They've been playing test match rugby since. First game took place at Dunedin, and the All Blacks edged that one 13-5 all the way back when. But yeah, there's a few other famous footnotes there. The All Blacks' first away win in terms of on tour series win in South Africa came in 1996, a full year after they were first crowned world champions in 95, and that's kind of parallels here as well. Just in terms of World Cups as well, if you need any argument, these are the two most successful, most decorated teams in world rugby. 3 World Cups each, 6 between them. Like just awesome. Of the 99 games played thus far, the All Blacks have the winning record. They've won 59 times. The Boks have won 36 times, and 4 matches have ended up in a draw. And then just as well, we have the longest winning streak, which was the All Blacks. They had 8 wins in a row, I should say, between 2001 and 2004. The Boks, their biggest winning record is 6 in a row. That spans from 1937 to 1956. Actually, such was the more sporadic nature of Test rugby back then. We didn't have Rugby Championship, obviously. Still the biggest winning margin is the All Blacks. That 57-0 drubbing from 2017.
Yes,
that
the
Bok fans don't like people bringing it up, but it did happen, and it is still the record holder for the largest winning margin. But then, interestingly, the highest scoring game we've ever had between them was a 55-35 All Black win in 1997.
I don't think we'll be getting that
I
one
don't
either.
know if we'll be getting that one either. Massive scores in that one. But yeah, just so many great games throughout history. What a matchup.
It is the iconic matchup in Test rugby. It's the iconic clash of styles between the big, the bullying, the defensive, and the bold, the brash, and the speedy.
Yeah, pioneering maul back in the day that the All Blacks were flummoxed by, and then the razzle-dazzle offloading rugby that can absolutely bamboozle the Boks too. Yeah, styles make matchups, and these two are kind of just spearhead two different approaches to the same game.
The apex predators of their respective styles, you might say. It is the highest level stylistic contrast that you're going to get in rugby, in Test rugby, and we've seen this play out in classic games. I think you were highlighting all of those 99 tests that have come before. In fact, the average score between the two teams over that period is 21-16 for New Zealand. If you average out all the games, it's a good little stat. Thank Ultimate Rugby for that one. It could well be that game again. It's an entirely likely one. The All Blacks have now won 9 tests on the bounce. They're in a phenomenal run of form. It dates back, in fact, to that 18-match streak they had either side of the World Cup in 2015, which was probably one of the great, if not the greatest teams of all time.
Sure.
This All Black team is as good as they've been since then. They've gone on now a phenomenal run of wins, and they're heading into this game number one side of the world, supremely confident in their ability to win.
10 points clear atop there in terms of the Rugby Championship dynamics, the tournament dynamics they're on. Nothing short of a bonus point win, and denying the All Blacks anything will do for the Boks. They need to do it back to back.
I don't even know what the deciding factor is if they end up on 20 each, which they won't, of course. No, but I mean, for what it's worth, the All Blacks are on plus 114 on their points difference, and the Springboks are on a measly plus 24.
No, that's going to be a massive difference maker if it comes to that, but I think it likely won't, as you say. No, the All Blacks have put themselves in a commanding position, and as you say, they've reclaimed the number 1 spot in the world, so it is number 1 ranked team in the world versus defending world champions as well, so you have just all kinds of pedigree throughout. It's going to be a fantastic match,
and a great occasion
at Queensland Bank Stadium, as you say, or Queensland Country Bank Stadium.
I'm loving Aussie rugby at the moment. I think they should be flying high. I will be most cross if they don't fill the stadium for this one, because I'll be like, gee, if they had brought it to Twickenham or somewhere anywhere up north, I'd have been scrambling, quarantine rules be damned.
There was a rumour mill that was suggesting that these games and this game might have happened at Twickenham or somewhere.
They could bring this game to Twickenham.
Just bring it to the RDS.
I would go. I would find my way across to London and go to it. But alas, it wasn't to be.
No.
I shall have to wait for the World Cup, perhaps, to see these sides meet in our hemisphere. But they are meeting in neutral ground. Just to look, obviously we've looked at the colour a little bit, but we're going to just take a look at the squads. We do have them. The teams have been named. There aren't too many surprises in them. The All Blacks, we're going to start with Joe Moody retains his position at loosehead after a very impressive scrummaging showing. He's partnered by Cody Taylor, who needs no introduction as far as form, and Nepo Laulala. Brody Retallick and Scott Barrett, who on balance are the 2 form locks, lock down that scrum very impressively. And then Akiri Ioane, who's form incredible. Artie Sevilla, who
likewise was
always going to be in there. And then Luke Jacobson gets the nod today.
He had one run out earlier. He has been, Yeah, he's another one who form dictates. He just came in. He's had a couple of starts thus far this season, and he's been very impressive in them. They also have Blackadder in covering on the back row cover and on the wing as well, or on the bench as well. So it's just, yeah, they have a lot of stocks, and Luke Jacobson gets the nod for this week, which is, fair play to him. Good to see him in there.
Yeah, 100%. The back line, TJ Perenara, Bowden Barrett, still no Mwanga at the moment, but as you rightly point out, that middle third of Bowden Barrett, David Havili and Rico Ioane, the quickest in world rugby.
Probably the fastest in rugby history, unless you can probably cite maybe some sevens teams and stuff.
Oh, sure, but that's not the same sport. 15, no, it's hard to find one as quick. Bowden and Rico with like elite back three speed.
Yeah, Havili was quick too.
Quite like he is
very effective on the
perhaps
wing.
Not as quick as the two guys either side of him, but still lightning.
Yeah.
And yes, as you say, former winger and fullback. Yeah. Very, very, very quick midfield and in form midfield as well. Will Jordan and George Bridge, no place for Sever Reese is the interesting talking point there. And then they've also gone with Jordy Barrett, who has been in good form and probably has taken the kicks very well.
He did take the kicks last week. I hope they like sometimes when Bowden and him are on the pitch together, they have Bowden taking the kicks. I can't understand why
they would ever do that.
Yeah, he strikes the ball just much better. And I think what they were talking about was just aerial proficiency is what did for Reese in terms of what they want from Bridge and from Will Jordan. A lot of that, and as well as Jordy, they picked.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of that. I think Reese is the form guy. I would have had him in there, but I mean they are an embarrassment. They have an embarrassment of riches.
They could have put Rico. They could have shifted Havili out to 13 and put Rico on the wing and to allow your
ALB, who's also not in this. Quinn Tupaya's sterling
was excellent as well. So they have options.
Yeah, he's on the bench. D-Max on the bench. Brad Weber obviously, and then in the pack some serious impact between Ethan Blackadder, Patrick Tuipulotu and Offa Tuangafasi. They have some serious impact.
They also have Tui Nukuafe covering tight head, and I think
Taukiaho covering hooker. It's interesting to see Tui Nukuafe covering at loose head instead of George Bauer. I'm not sure if he's unfit or not, but his form was sterling, and it's definitely weakens them because Moody's form is great. If they had Moody in there and he was holding down the fort, and then they had Bauer to come on, you wouldn't fear for them in that area. But Tuinuku Wafe up against Vincent Cock off the bench isn't as good a matchup. And
no, that's the one area where you could perhaps cite an area of Springbok supremacy. But,
of course.
Pivoting to the Springboks, we have that team named as well. Trevor Unyakanye, Bongi Mbanambi and Malherbe as the first choice of the front row.
Big Trev getting his 50th cap up.
Congrats to him. He's been well good for it. Etzebeth and Diaga retain their spots in the rows. And then a slight change in the back row. You have Sia Khaleesi and Dwayne Vermeulen retaining their jerseys at 6 and 8, but Quagga Smith comes in at 7 for Mostert. Mostert drops to the bench, probably covering his more traditional role of lock. And it seems, we were discussing it in the review.
It's 100% right. He's not going to be knackered. Like Mostert was their form lock, even possibly more than Etzebeth.
Yeah.
His capacity to shut down the maul, his capacity to just hit those hard defensive tackles in the tight.
Yeah.
Like he was exposed playing out of position,
playing a Peter Steff job, which Quagga Smith can do in terms of speed. He won't have the same power, but he should have more stamina and more cardio to try and operate in those channels.
Cover that space.
So that's the decision there. Then in the back line, very similar again. We have Faf de Klerk and Andre Pollard, the usual suspects. You have Delinde and Am in the centre, and you have the same as we've had before: Mapimpi, Nkosi and LaRue. Still no sign of Colby, although he does remain with the squad. He has obviously not been fit.
And they have missed him. I thought with Nkosi coming in,
it's almost like if you take Peter Steff and Colby out of any team in the world, they'll be a little worse for it.
Like I had thought that with Nkosi coming in, starved of minutes, that it could come right for him, but actually, like he was put in like some half spaces a couple of times last. Like it's hard to call them clear cut chances, but what they were
Colby,
exactly the space that Colby eats in. And I think the Colby Corambetti matchup we could have had would have been more interesting than the Nkosi Corambetti matchup, which was hands down won by Corabetti, who just got through way more work and found work to find himself in space a lot more than Nkosi did.
Yeah, true.
So that is potentially an area of weakness for them. Where they are strong is on the bench, obviously. True. Malcolm Marks, Kitsoff and Cock, that classic bomb squad combination with Mostert, with Van Staden, who has been excellent off the bench. But then they've deviated a little.
Yeah, well, they were complaining a bit because Visa was cleared. Ultimately, he had been cited during the week for that reckless clear out that he might have seen red for in the previous game if he was a little less fortunate. But he did get cleared. However, too late because they'd named their team early in the week and they were complaining about the process and how long it takes to clear players, so they've had to deviate from their traditional bomb squad of 6-2 and they've gone back to a 5-3 split with the back covering. You have two Yankeeses, Herschel and Elton coming in to cover 10, and you also have Franz Steyn as well as the outside back cover. That's definitely, it's a little worse. Willemse a little unlucky to be dropping out as well.
Not just Willemse, like there's a couple, like I think, yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they genuinely trust Herschel, Elton, or even Francois to come on towards the tail end of the game.
If the game's in the balance in the last quarter.
Or even if they need to do something, if they need to inject something. Like, all three of them have their moments. Well, I would say Elton hasn't really had many moments, and Elton's 31 now, and I would have thought at this stage, if it was gonna happen for him, it would have happened already. I think he's one of these guys who struggles at the top level. To be honest with you, Visa gives me that vibe as well. Like, he's very good when the level's a little lower, but when it gets higher, he gets loose and silly and does commit mistakes like we saw last week.
Sure.
So I don't think it's hurting them too much. I think Van Staden's actually the right man to have on the bench.
Yeah.
But from that back point of view, I think, like, the two that are glaring for me are Reinach and Willemse, whose form has been immaculate. Like, Reinach's form is unequivocally better than Faf's, let alone Herschel's.
Yeah,
and yet they just like the balance of having Herschel on the bench, and then Reinach will start if Faf doesn't play. They're not deviating from that script.
Yeah.
I think that's wrong. I also think Willemse, like, they have two goal kickers on the bench here. Like, the obvious one is Elton instead of Willemse. That doesn't make sense because Francois can come on and kick goals. Willems has been great off the bench.
Yeah.
His scramble defense is great. His aerial ability is great. His work rate, his hustle. He's one of the guys who isn't suffering from the conditions as much. He's sprinting out there, which isn't true of all of them, including De Lindy.
Yeah.
And Franz Steyn, like, he's old and he's big, and he has that frame that might struggle in this heat against a team that is playing at a speed like no other team in World Rugby. So, like, I've sometimes when I go out there in a preview and question some of these things, I end up with egg on my face.
Comes in and kicks winning goals.
I end up with egg on my face. Of course, that's possible. Of course, Nienaber is the guy who's in there with the squad and making these decisions and is undoubtedly more informed than I am on this stuff. But I'm a little skeptical looking at those three back subs. I'm not sure if they got the balance quite right. Yeah. But they do still have a lot of impact on that bench.
They do, and a lot of power just throughout that team as well. So yeah, those are the two teams that will be going into battle this Saturday. Yeah, it's still just a lot of quality there throughout. We're gonna look now at the winning conditions for both teams and preview how they're gonna go about tackling this massive fixture. And we're gonna start with the host for this week, which is the All Blacks. Technically, considering they do home and away fixtures, even though it's all in Australia, but this is technically the All Blacks home leg. So we're gonna start with them and look at how they're gonna look to assert themselves the number one team in World Rugby by doing the job on the Springboks.
It'll start pre-game. I suspect they will roll out Kappa Opango. Yes. They've been keeping that under wraps.
They have.
It's been Kamate all season long.
Kamate all the way until the 100th Test match against the Springboks, when you might see a Kappa Opango.
I think that's what we're going to see this week. I think they've been keeping it under wraps. They haven't been wasting it on
so no one be making tea during the hacker or anything. You'll want to see that one.
It's gonna be impactful. They're going to look to start well. Like, there's a myriad ways the All Blacks can win this game. They are in sensational form. They look a lot fresher than the Springboks do right now. And winning the forward battle is a legitimate possibility here. True. Winning the scrum is a legitimate possibility. Their nuts and bolts are very well put together. Yeah. But they're going to want to get it done with their offense. They know that that's the most likely thing. And they're going to have to be patient as well. I mean, they know what the Springboks... They have to assume that the Springboks are going to bring something close to their A game. I think you're going to have to expect that they're going to revert to type. They're going to kick a lot of ball. They're going to look to own the territory. They're going to try and mind their P's and Q's and discipline and not give the All Blacks easy entrances.
But also slow their ruck up with ferocious contests and counter rucks, but try and keep it clean.
Exactly. So the name of the game for the All Blacks here is to be patient.
Yeah.
To understand that the Boks dominating the game doesn't have to be reflected on the scoreboard, and that you can do more harm than good if you try and force the issue. Like, if you're finding yourself pinned back early doors, or that the Springboks are getting on top of them, that they're just not having the territorial ability to have a platform in the early game, they need to stick to backing their defense, backing their set piece when they get the ball, kicking it deep, and daring the Springboks to score against them.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, when half an hour rocks up, when even 20 minutes rocks up, whenever the ball falls for the All Blacks, knowing that they're going to be the team that is going to strike, that is going to have that clinical
that was
edge.
The last time we saw these two face off was in that World Cup pool game, which was a game that the Boks lost, and it was one that they had dominated for the opening quarter for like 3 or 6-0, and the All Blacks struck back, bang bang, try, which is their tried and tested formula against the Boks. The Boks, their style is to dominate for much longer periods, and ultimately their scores come a bit more methodically, a bit slower. The All Blacks will be looking to be the lethal team out there that can just rack up scores in a matter of moments, and that's why they, as you say, patience is key. They can't be discouraged if they're repelled a couple of times in the opening, which they may be a little lateral, as they were in the opening Bledisloe test, where they were trying to go wide early and they were shut down by good Wallaby D.
And that's it. Like the Springboks like to eat on defense. Like if the Springboks have come out with that energy and the All Blacks are finding it hard to penetrate on the inside, and hence there's nothing there on the outside, they shouldn't be and they won't be afraid to kick the ball from that middle third, to play a bit of defence early doors, and to wait for their opportunity and be the team to strike in that opportunity. And that's key. I think another area that's obviously massively important is the aerial game. They've highlighted
they've
that.
Picked a back three that has, well, it speaks to their thinking about it. They know what to expect coming at them. They've picked kind of non-vertically challenged groups of their myriad of riches there, and they're going to look to counter off those kicks. They're also going to engage in some of those kick tennis battles, but they should focus on kicking in field, as has been the recipe against this Bok team. Protracted periods of play within the field of play, like 5 minutes of constant footy and the ball changing hands, turn, like that'll suit them more than it'll suit the Boks. 100%.
You get that every game in Aotearoa.
Exactly. They're happy enough if possession changes hands a few times in one sequence, and then suddenly there's an opportunity where they will sniff and they will go into a transitional kind of play. Like transition and turnover is where they are so good, but similarly kick return, which is they're going to be afforded opportunities on kick return if they can navigate.
I think somewhat, it depends.
If they're kicking on their terms,
are going to be chasing those kicks. They're not going to be offering much. I think they need to be cognizant of the fact that the Springboks are trying to generate their own chaos off those high balls, and really the job is for Messrs Jordan and Bridge and Barrett in that back three to defuse them.
I think the other Barrett will probably be helping them out in the back three.
I said Bodie in the backfield on defense is no brainer. He covers so much ground
and helps with that transition. If it's on, then you have two Barretts and a Jordan folding to the blind side. There's room.
It. They just have to be conscious of not giving the Boks easy moments, like dropping the ball and allowing Nkosi to gather. That's how the Boks like to score. They make these games tight, they make them scrappy, and then they feast off the little kick, off those chaos kick moments.
The scraps that
and they do have wingers that'll take tries, and the All Blacks will be aware of that.
True.
So it's a question of absorbing the pressure to some extent, but knowing, I still think from the middle third they're going to be looking to probe, and on the evidence of recent weeks, they do believe in their skill set and they do believe in their speed.
They do a little more than probe.
Exactly.
They find the seams.
If they can get to the outside before that Bok defense can get into their face, if they can get outside the wide rusher, whoever it is, it's not as frequently as the Boks would like it to be these days, but whoever's rushing on that edge. Like the Wallabies had great joy when they could get outside that. The All Blacks,
put a guy like Rico in that space with the speed,
or even Geordie, like any of them, they all know how to pick a line. They all know how to finish a line break. The key is whether they can generate enough tempo in their offense to nullify what the Boks are trying to bring off the line.
Tempo will be, as it always is, like in the early goings. It's a bit of a chess match, and it's kind of an arm wrestle, and you can have 3-pointers exchanged, but one of the things you can get a glimpse into how things are going to open up in the last quarter from the first quarter is who's managing to jostle control of that tempo, and you'll have such a clear point of difference between these teams. The Boks will want to play a slower game, want to have a bit more kind of breaks in play. They want to move set piece to penalty to set piece, whereas the All Blacks will want to keep that pace a little more frenetic and a little more high, and whoever's succeeding at that in the early exchanges, that'll probably go a long way towards deciding this fixture, and the All Blacks will be looking to keep the ball in playtime high, keep the tempo high,
and just get it to the edge. When they got it to the edge, even against the Pumas, the spaces that open up for the speed that they have, the speed and the footballing ability that they have all through that back line, the middle third, and then the lethal wingers outside to finish. And even Geordie coming from deep picks wonderful lines of great distributors, and really from 10, 12, 13, even Rico, phenomenal distributors. The real question is whether they can get that clear ruck ball like they got against the Pumas. I'm thinking for that early flowing sequence that resulted in the Tuipulotu try against the Pumas last week, when they managed to get to the edge, and I think it was Taukiaho or whoever it was, got like a dynamic carry, got through the gain line. Instantly the ball was back, the one rucker was in, and the Pumas were on their heels. They didn't get a chance to counter ruck before the ball was gone.
Yeah,
and even that is how
they
you
have
do
great
it.
instincts, and like their back row forwards do that as well. Like it was Blackadder who played scrummy for one of their tries in that exact way, whereas you're just focused on I'm here to resource the ruck, but the ruck's already resourced, so I'm half back now, move the ball, clear the ruck.
Exactly, when they can give their backs that platform, when the ball is so quick, the Bok defense is folding into its shape instead of coming up aggressively.
And you have Barrett hitting the line with those guys outside.
It's game over. It's game over. That is the model that they want to do. And while early doors, there is the possibility of the Boks bringing that energy and shutting that down, and that's where the patience comes in, not being naive.
If you're 3 or 6 points down, it doesn't matter. Don't throw them a pick, because they'll love a pick.
Exactly. It's how they play them into the game. And if they are getting on top of them on the inside, if the quick ruck ball isn't there, the All Blacks shouldn't be and won't be afraid to kick the ball, play a bit of patience, but when they get the opportunity, when the game breaks up, when the Springbok D is a little bit on its heels and a little bit out of sorts, when they isolate that perhaps, instead of Am in the 13 channel, it's Pollard or Faf de Klerk or Willie Leroux, they'll go for them. They'll go after them. And that's what you have to identify.
This is true. All of that backline have a decent boot as well. Like if Willie kicks well, and they should be dialing in, because given that you're playing the Boks, you're going to expect a bit of kick tennis. There'll be a chance to kick a 50-22, an aggressive 50-22,
or even just a chip over the line, just to keep
all
them
of
honest.
These, just mix it up, and keep them honest. You do want to vary your kicking game, but you broadly do want to keep them in field and probing in various ends.
I can't remember which Bledisloe game it was, but when Bowden was at 10, it might have been Bledisloe 3, when they got that early try that came from a Bowden grubber.
Yes, that was a beautiful
that try is with the level of execution the All Blacks have, that try is there against the Boks sometimes. I know Faf sometimes goes out the back, but sometimes he finds himself up in the line, and when he finds himself up in the line, those little spaces in behind
attacking rubbers or attacking chips definitely pay inroads. The tight five and the back row forward unit as well will have to work ferociously hard to sustain their tempo, which is what they have been doing flawlessly all season. They just can't let that pace drop. Guys like Jacobson needs to be committed to hitting a load of rucks, clearing a load of rucks, getting good clean ball, which is what they thrive on. Similarly, their lock union, they don't have Whitelock, who is their main weapon at line-out time, but these guys who have been in, even last week with the different personnel again, they've shown a really good ability to nick crucial line-outs. They deflated the Pumas a few times with crucial steals. It'll have the exact same effect against this Bok pack if they're looking to set up a maul, rather than try and defend the maul, which is very tough to defend. Just nick the ball if you can get a read on. It's one of those little things that the Boks, being a forward-oriented team that they are, they do respond. The heads drop a little when they can't.
100%.
They're expecting to march up and set up a line-out drive, and instead it's poached and then counter-attack.
It's on Brodie Retallick to take the lead on that. Whitelock likes to take the lead. I think when it's Retallick and Scott Barrett in there.
Retallick's a little more rangy. He's just got them more attributally suited to doing it.
A little more than Scott Barrett, who's very much your tight head.
Tougher to lift.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bit heavier. So it is on Brodie to lead that defensive line out. And then the other area, this is where I talk about there's so many ways they can win this game, is the expectation is that the Boks are going to be that defensive marauding
force we saw in the Lions tour.
That we know so well. But what we saw last week was the explosive dynamic carrying of the likes of Taniela Tupou, skittling them with footwork, and
you'll fancy Artie Seville, fancy his chances in those open spaces.
Artie Seville, Akira Ioane, whose form is incredible, and also I think one of the key matchups, and we'll talk about this from a Springbok point of view, is what goes on in that 12 channel between David Havili and Demi and Dealindi.
Two different types of 12s, similar to the different types of side that they are. You have very much the brick wall Dealindi, but he hasn't been thus far, versus the pacey kind of outside back converted to a 12 who plays distribution, and who's just in great form.
Really off since the first game I saw him wear 12 in a Crusader shirt. It was that's where problem solved from the All Blacks point of view, and he hasn't missed a beat since then. He's only got better, and that is if they can game break and he can win that one-on-one matchup and just break the spirit of the Bok D before it starts off set pieces with that footwork, with that explosive ability, deceptive explosive ability that he has, and then at times needing the link to add to that, which he does have in abundance as well, like Karevi did, where you can just get an edge on a contact. And then, like, Karevi had guys running off him, but he didn't have guys running off him like Rico Ioane or Bowden Barrett.
Or Will Jordan, who find himself in under the sticks.
The game-breaking potential of this All Black backline on offence is truly mouth-watering. And that, like, if they can get favourable matchups anywhere on the pitch, they will be looking to attack. They will be looking to strike.
They're similar. There are a few other classic recipes to All Black footy. Grab a try pre-half time. They've done it in every game this season, as we've highlighted.
And the Springboks have slowed down after 30 minutes.
They have a tendency to gas and flag a little bit in the 30 to 35 to 40 minute mark, whereas the All Blacks just switch on to a ridiculous extent. It's championship minutes for a reason, and they look a championship team this year. They'll be looking to stick the dagger in just before half time and then twist it on the other side of half time and then have it all sewn up by the end of the third quarter, as is their way. So if you see them managing to pull the Boks this way and that, if you see the Boks holding it together but ultimately being slightly behind and then a try goes in just before half time, that's the All Blacks really painting painting their picture, and then they're ready to get into their groove, and they're going to introduce the likes of Damien McKenzie in the second half, and that's when it's a bit more open and there's a bit more ranging space out there. So there's definitely a recipe for an All Black win here.
They have to be a little cognizant of what the Bok picture is and not play into their hands, and to focus on at scrum time and not allowing them to get on top of them.
The front row have a big job, and actually the bench front row
just
as
the whole
well.
eight, like,
that's
just
where
scrum
they
as a
will be
unit.
looking to attack it. If it's slipping out of their control, if they can't lock down the scrum and the Boks are able to negotiate a game that's stop-start, that's scrum, reset, penalty box, kick down the corner, Waterboy comes in, Etzebeth lies down for a sec, and then we go for a maul. Like, all of that is kind of really bad for the All Blacks in terms of controlling tempo and stuff. So if you can prevent that simply by locking down that set piece, and then similarly
going after them, like Joe Moody turned Madrano this way and that last
they
week,
have
and
confidence.
Malherbe now is a much bigger, tougher scrummager than Madrano is, but nevertheless it was an impressive coup from Moody, and this All Black front row does have the potential to be explosive, and it's just another area where if they can get on top, they will burst.
It's one of the nails in the coffin. The South African confidence is already taking a back-to-back shellackings in terms of they weren't expecting quite what they got from Australia, and now they have to face the mighty All Blacks. So it'll be easier for the All Blacks to make them come unstuck than I think it will be for the Springboks. I think more has to go right for the Springboks in this matchup than for the All Blacks. So as you say, if they can keep patient, keep disciplined, focus on your skill set, and that'll probably be good enough to see you home, because it has been all season. So
then from just that obviously is the All Black picture. From a Springbok point of view, flipping to the other side of the equation, I mean, there's a number of things that they can go on. I think the first of which, obviously they need to bring energy, but they need to have just that extra level that they haven't had the last few weeks, that they did manage to find in the big Lions match. The understanding that the pride of the nation is at stake, and the feats that brings out of this group.
They're an emotionally charged bunch at their best. They very much are. And Razzie seems to have a kind of direct line to their emotionally charged bone, whereas Nienaber does seem a bit more cerebral, a little bit kind of more of a calm voice in there. But they definitely do need a little bit of kind of the bullish, adrenaline-fueled kind of intensity to that defensive effort.
There is potential to get it out of them this week.
What kind of hacker response do they want?
Well, they've suffered 2 bad bruises the last couple of weeks. They were really poor last week. They have 2 more weeks in this campaign. They know how big this game is. They've been preparing for this game. Has been in the back of their minds, apart from obviously they've had the Lions tour, but this game has been in the back of their minds all season. And now all of a sudden everyone's doubting them again. They're under pressure again. And I tell you what, the All Black media,
they've been going in as they always do.
The antithesis of their team, in that they seem to work overtime trying to get the All Blacks to lose by tempting fate. But the New Zealand Herald
had never catch Irish publications going in like this.
The New Zealand Herald had a headline under their sports section with a picture of the Boks singing their anthem and the caption, "Unfit, unskilled, unnerved," and then the subheading, "Boks heading for humiliation in 100th All Blacks clash."
There you go.
I mean, unreal thing to write. If I was Nienaber and whatever Razzie via Zoom, I would be pinning that to the notice board and telling these guys, like, they are laughing at you. This is like the Springbok jersey. They're making a mockery of it. Yeah. We are the world champions. We got to dress these guys down. They do not treat us with this disrespect. That's the kind of stuff. Like you hear Razzie talking to these guys. It's very earthly. It's not sort of. He doesn't. They obviously have their nuanced tactical discussions. But in terms of getting the best out of them,
a match week thing as opposed to a match day thing.
It's an energy thing. Like the whole defense does hinge on their ability to reach almost inhuman levels of energy in terms of getting off the line with explosive speed.
We know it in an Ireland jersey as well. Ireland can be that ferocious defensive force, and it has to be emotionally charged. If you're a bit more cerebral on the defensive line, you're a little bit tamer. You're just a little bit slower, a little bit less physical,
especially on that inside. Like if the Boks are going to win this game, they're going to start explosively. They nearly want the All Blacks to have the ball. Of course they want the All Blacks to have the ball. Like if they get the ball, though, they're going to do is kick it to the All Blacks. They want the All Blacks to have the ball early, and they want them to get nothing. They want them to
they want to put contacts in on all the Barretts, early doors.
Try to get one move going with Retallick off the ruck and have him met with an Etzebeth and then a Diager backing him up, and then leg drive backwards in the contact, kind of post gain line smash, getting it. Like they have to mind their discipline. Like the things can burst their balloon.
It can't be high. It can't be like off your feet at the ensuing ruck, hands in the ensuing ruck, undoes all that good work.
Of course, and that's where their quality has to show, and their temperament has to show, and how they have to marry the emotion with the reality of the game. But they do need to have that sort of sublime energy where they just get out of the line and give you nothing on the inside. We are bigger and stronger than you, no matter how big and strong you think you are. We're when they dealt with Itoje in that second test. Itoje, after having that immaculate first test, and he is one of the best in the world, no doubt about it. And they just gave him nothing. They hit him all day long. That's the kind of performance they need. They need Brodie Retallick going backwards straight away. TJ scrapping for ball. And then all of a sudden when Bodie gets it, there isn't anything there. There's just, he looks to his outside, and Am and Lindy have just come up in that space, and it's like, well, I could try a really speculative crossfield kick, or I could take a contact, or I could just heave it downfield, which is what I'll do.
Those are the ultimatums you want to leave in Bodie's hands, rather than options where he's like, do I hit Rico? Do I flash it right? Do I step myself? You don't want to be floundering and giving him all kinds of space. You want to be up in his grill and making it very, very tough and suffocating. It remains to be seen. It's an open-ended question to me whether they can perform that way that you are demanding of them in the conditions that they're playing in these Australian games, because it just seems that the game takes a shape that's different. And I know, like, from an Irish point of view, watching Ireland play in Australia, we end up being a little bit more expansive as a team. It's just a different track to be playing footy on. So
there's definitely truth to what you're saying, but I think there's another element that's led to them just losing it a little bit in the last couple of weeks. I think they've lost energy as a unit.
Yeah, well, they've done a lot of work, and as we were highlighting, like, you take Colby and Peter Steff out of a team, they're going to be weaker for it. They've done a fair bit of matching. They've been in that bubble, and they look a little weary. It's hard to re-energise for an occasion like an Australia game. Like, it was easy enough to dial in for the Pumas, first of all, because the Pumas is an easier challenge than the Wallabies. It was at
home.
But
once they'd won that Lions tour, and then they had the next 2 weeks against the Pumas, so they had to immediately transition into that, and they got those wins done, and then they had to fly out to Australia, and all of a sudden, like, the weight of everything that they'd done already in that 5-week period started to eat on them, and they couldn't find it again. But this game, in the context of what's being written about them and what's being said about them,
and the 100th test, and the history and the rivalry,
and their number one tag being gone and people starting to write them off again, all of that has to feed into an aggressive, bullish defensive task.
It does.
Because what I will say is, this All Black team is the best team without question that Razzie's Springboks have faced. They're not Razzies, they're Ninabbers, but they are Razzies as well. Since Razzie came in and that transformation happened, they have not played a team this good. Not before or after or during the World Cup have they played a team as good as this All Black team. The All Blacks were a shadow of themselves in the World Cup. They were only glimpses. This All Black team is polished. They're true to their identity. They look the best team in the world. It is a tremendous challenge for this defence, and obviously without the likes of Peter Steff to toy it, guys like Quagga Smith are going to have to find themselves.
Huge job. He, as we were saying, is more of a like for like, in that they wanted Mostert doing the Peter Steff role just because Peter Steff is so bizarrely huge and physical, being a former row player himself. To have him as a number 7 with pace like a Josh van der Fleer off the line, like, he'll just race up into the 10's face. you want to have that pace more than that power. The power is a great attribute that he has that makes him probably the best in the world at that particular task. But when you don't have him available, you still want that speed to cover that ground. And if Quagga can stick his tackles and be ferocious and fueled by emotion like that, that'll probably give license for De Allende to just at least not be doubting his inside, so that he can be a bit more solid. And then Am can start dictating things from the 13 channel rather than having to run around himself, come inside. He was playing pillar a few times and they just look discombobulated without that link there. And yeah, Quagga is a smaller guy than Mostert and than Peter Steph du Toit, but he'll have to cover the ground and hit very
and they
hard.
all will. I mean, there was moments last week, obviously, like just uncharacteristic moments, the likes of Bongi and Manambi just falling off tackles.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff obviously can't happen, and they're against elite offensive operators who have more agility and power than they are used to dealing with at any level. Even against the Lions, some of these guys they're going to be up against are freakish. It is a task, but they have it in them. They're freakish themselves. When you watch them when you watch them hungrily eat up an offense, as they have done many a time, they are freakish to watch themselves. And in that sense, if they can deliver on what they have been delivering on for the last few years from a defensive point of view, we are going to get what is
best
the greatest
defense.
matchup in the sport right now. And that's like, that is obviously just whet the appetite, exciting.
That's what we want to see. That's definitely what I want to see.
Yeah, of course. And then the other side of the equation is whether they can turn that defensive energy, like that is obviously your first, second and third step, but whether they can turn that energy into points as well. Like the MO of this team has been defensive tries, chaos high ball tries where they manage to make shite of the high ball and then get a lead back three player on the ball in a bit of space and finish the try from there. Like Villy LaRue has been great in those little plays. And obviously we know how lethal Mapimpi and Nkosi can be if they get into those space. And then the third equation is maul tries. Those are their three three ways to score. So defensive tries, turnovers, it was how they beat them in Wellington as well. I mean, they did concede tries in that game, but their defense ended up their defense was like net maybe -7 or 10 or something like that, because it actually generated two tries itself.
It did,
as well as conceding a few, because that
has to be happening. If they can grab a pick 7 under the post from a shoot, that'll be excellent for them. That's kind of their recipe for success. Similarly, like on that end of the defense, like obviously we know that they overload their wingers with the shoot, then the shoot has to be spot on and they have to follow
and that's
that.
What's been so poor the last 2 weeks. The shoot has been all over the place. Like, they're committing to shoots either when they're way off or just like half committing to them. Like,
only
not,
one person
not
committing.
sprinting.
No, well,
like,
you need to have them in harmony. Like a lot of times when they're shooting in concert and you have Delindi first, aggressive shoot, and Mapimpi even more aggressive shoot over the top. And like, yes, there is maybe an over the top pass there, but it's already swallowed up there. They need to be on the money, and all three of those back three guys, Nkosi, Mapimpi and LaRue, need to be willing to accept that they will be forced into 1v1 tackles at some point. Like, they are going to get outside them at points, and it's going to be up to them to snuff that play out. They need to do it, because they were also poor in that area and against the Wallabies, just falling off tackles out wide 1v1, and that's just inviting the try.
That's what they haven't had as well. The scramble D at its best is a thing of absolute beauty.
True.
And of course the discipline will have to be minded. But like, if they're a step off the pace, they will fall off tackles, they will give away penalties, and they'll lose heavily.
They will.
And that, like, they are aware of that possibility, and that's why that cannot be how they rock up to this game. They have to be fever pitch, the best that they can be.
Ferocious and emotionally charged, but also leaders like Vermeulen and Khaleesi to be a calm influence in that chaos. And they can, like, if they can put the squeeze on through their things like their maul, things like the set piece, and they can control it and make it the game that they want to play, rather than, like, they were citing it last week against the Wallabies, and we mentioned as well, they actually had more possession than the Wallabies, which is unlike them, because when in their defensive showings they're just kicking the ball to the opposition and defending, so they end up with like 30% possession and yet outscoring them by 2 scores. They kind of got suckered into playing a bit more of a fast and loose game, but they weren't very good at. They didn't
trust their D, and that was the concern. Like, they looked off, and we can speculate as to why they looked off,
but just the only fact is you're looking at the evidence, and it's like they look off.
The question is, will they be off this week? They'll need to be on, and that's the reality, is that they need to be on. I would isolate 2 very key men in potentially pivotal men in the tight 5. First of all, Big Trev, 50th cap. didn't get to impose himself in the game last week. He was up against Tupou. It was tough. It was kind of a stalemate while he was on at the scrum. There wasn't anything major happening, but he wasn't able to get on top of Tupou. No crime there. Tupou is phenomenal. But he went off at half time with a knock that was, or even actually slightly before half time, that was disruptive. He needs to, like, when he's at his best, when he's at his best, he is an insanely aggressive, insanely effective loose-headed scrummager, way better than he is a tight head. And that kind of eating that's one that could surprise the All Blacks. He flies under the radar how good a scrummager he is.
They have who's reffing it is an English ref, isn't it?
Luke Pearce.
We said so like he will reward dominant scrums if it comes, if they can be aggressive as they were in the World Cup. It was such a recipe for success for them, was not just aggressive but destructive scrummaging, destroy their scrum, and then it's a penalty unequivocally for you, and then you can take your time, set up your maul, and if your maul's accurate you can do that. Things like guys like Mostert to come in off the bench could be a renewed man, in that final quarter, him off the back, one of their best mauls of the year has come from him going up at 6 nearly, or at 4 I guess, out beyond it, like the back of the line out, and setting a beautiful transition. He's really, really good on the aggressive setting up a spearheading of them all.
No question. And the other man that I was highlighting in that tight 5 as well is Lou Diager, who he'll likely replace Mustard at some point, but in that early part of the game he is a very effective line out caller. He's come off the bench this year to great effect and run that Springbok pack and that Springbok set piece really, really effectively. If he can be one step ahead of the likes of Retallick at the line out and just give them that security at set piece and allow them to flex their muscles at set piece, that's how you start to see the Boks.
That's how you put a little bit of squeeze on the All Blacks and slow them down by making them stop your maul and making them tackle your big hard carriers, and getting like Faf will have to be sharper. He'll have to channel that energy he brought to that first set of the second half last week, where he was frenetic and bringing his carriers on with lovely tempo and precision as well in his passing, and then finding a little space for a grubber to find a try. Those are good multi-phase assets. He'll need to be sharper than he has been from minute one.
I still personally don't envision them scoring, like they will get a maximum of 1 try out of like multi-phase offense, it's not likely they'll get any.
The All Black defense has been stellar.
They'll kick threes if they get down. If they like milk penalties and kick threes, because the All Blacks will oblige you if you do that, and then the question is, it's on their defense. Can they stop them? And what do you think? Can they stop them?
I think they can, in terms of the evidence of the last few years, but the form of the last few weeks, like what it was, you were citing their form going into the World Cup. They were the best team going in, and then they won the thing. They haven't looked, in honesty, as good as they did in that World Cup year, even in the Lions tour. Even though guys like Khaleesi found more form, and based on those 2 showings against Australia, and the fact that I'm just uncertain that they can play as well as they play in other places in Australia, I think all of it's coming up suiting the All Blacks a little bit more, and I think the All Blacks are going to win this one. Probably by 2 scores, not quite 1 score.
I mean, I
don't think it'll be a blowout either.
There's a myriad ways this game can go, and a blowout is one.
It's a possibility, but I don't fully think. I think the Boks, we will see more of a defiant streak from them, but I just don't think it'll be enough. I think their capacity to score will be outstripped by the All Black capacity to score.
For me, the All Blacks look incredible. From the first whistle of the first game they played this year, they have. And
everyone was saying, it's a waste of time them playing Tonga, but it's like, you put any other team out against Tonga, they wouldn't score 102.
No, they have been outstanding, really, really outstanding. They've built their season nicely. They have changed the mindset and culture of the All Black team back to its roots from a place where
it reset it more than changed.
Yeah, exactly. It was ugly and it was wrong, and they have flipped it on a dime. Their off-season messaging was perfect, and it's come up.
Obviously, their work in the off-season and that Super Rugby Aotearoa boot camp that it was in terms of high quality bubble rugby.
It's all come up trumps for them. They have a phenomenal outfit. The talent is unrivaled in any other team, and I would have enormous faith in them to find a way by hook or by crook, just to find a way to get through.
They'll find a try when they need one, whereas the Boks may not. They may need a try and not find one.
And I just think they're the best team in the world right now. I think they've earned that title. I think they've been absolutely brilliant, and I would love to see. I think it would be great to see the Boks stop them, and then that tight game play out. but my instinct tells me that the All Blacks
Aussies saying they're the best in the world now, and
all that silly maths.
Yes,
but I don't think I can look past the All Blacks for this one. They just look too good.
Furious at the minute. Too good, too quick, too fast.
Too much
for the
too much
for
for everybody so far.
That's what it's been. What do you think is going to happen? Let us know in the comments down below who you got. Are you nailing your colours to the mast and saying no, you'll see something from our boys if you're a Bok fan, or are you looking at it and thinking, geez, I don't know if I can see past the All Blacks, which is where we're at right now. Let us know down below. We are just looking forward to that one, the 100th test between the All Blacks and the Springboks. What a game.
You can't miss this one.
Alright, with that we're going to move on and look at the other fixture from round 5 this weekend, which is the Wallabies versus the Pumas. This is another interesting game, to be honest, slightly overshadowed by the sheer pageantry of the 100th test between the All Blacks and the Boks. But this is no less interesting a contest from a rugby point of view. It's also going to be taking place at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. It's also going to be on Saturday, 25th of September. Kickoff is 11:05 here. That's 8:05 local time, and it's going to be reffed by Matthew Carley, the other English ref down there as well.
So we put that silly New Zealand South Africa game out of the way. That's the curtain raiser for the
curtain raiser
show.
For this. Yeah, I don't know.
They better show up. The Wallaby fans better show up for that. I can't imagine that they won't. But if they don't show up for the All Blacks Springboks, I'll lose faith in them entirely.
Yeah, that is a fair call. Just in terms of ARs, we have Jaco Piper and Nick Berry on the sideline, and Brett Cronin in as TMO for this one. And just in terms of colour for the game, we've the two sides have met 34 times in total. The Wallabies have won 25 of those, Argentina 6, and 3 matches have ended in a draw. However, more interestingly and prevalently, 2 of those draws came last year, as you may remember, in the Tri-Nations. It was a 15-all and a 16-all draw when last these two sides met last year. Yeah. So
guaranteed more points this year.
I would imagine so. I would imagine more points from both of these sides, just given what we're seeing. The Puma Trophy was established in 2000. It's on the line. It's the perpetual trophy between these two. It was established in 2000.
So too is that Ransbury Shield.
That's right. Yeah,
if the Pumas world champions.
Yes, they can get the lineal world championship in the books. The last Pumas win came, or their last win came in 2018 on Australian soil. Not at this stadium, at the Robina Stadium, but they only have to go back as far as 2018 for success against this Wallaby, or against a Wallaby side. But it is in terms of colour, they're two very different sides right now. Dave Rennie's Wallabies playing a different game from what they were, and similarly Ledesma's Pumas looking unrecognisable from that 2018 team anyway, in terms of what they're bringing to the game and what their main assets are. Yeah,
there's no doubt that you speak the truth. They're at different ebbs. The Wallabies are flying high. The Pumas are a little bit rocked. They've had a rough time of it. They hadn't evolved their game up until last week.
That's true.
And we'll take a look now at the two squads, starting with the hosts, the Wallabies. They've stuck with Tupou at tight head, which I love. They've got Faanga and Slipper in there with them. They've stuck with Rodda and Phillip, gone with continuity. Yeah. They have brought in Robert Leota at 6 in the back row with Hooper and Valentini, so they've thrown that curveball in there and kept basically gotten rid of Lockie Swinton reasonably and kept Samu on the bench.
I don't know if Swinton is injured or sighted or otherwise, but it was what we were calling for anyway. He was the one blemish on an otherwise perfect pack performance was his very, very reckless shot that could have seen red in another universe. With another ref, it could easily have been a red card. So, and it's not the first time he's done that. He's a little bit of a bull out there for them.
Yeah, no, I'm personally fine with seeing him go. I think he costs
them more than how good Samu's been off the bench. That's probably the impact they want to keep. So you get Leona straight in there, and you still have Samu to spring from the bench. So
100%. And their backline, they've gone with solidity, consistency. Obviously, they have that experienced halfback partnership, Nick White and Quade Cooper, who've traded out for the young Chargers towards the tail end of this campaign with great success. Karevi and Nikitau forming a lightning dynamic centre partnership.
Awesome.
And then Corin Betty, Kellaway, who's been stellar. Kellaway on both sides of the ball. He's been great.
And he was a great season with the Rebels that saw him in there on form, and he's grabbed that jersey. Much like Tom Wright last year, he's been kind of the Tom Wright of this year in terms of coming in there and flying high.
And obviously Tom Banks' injury paves the way for Reece Hodge to take the fullback jersey. There was a little talk that JOC was going to take that jersey. JOC is back. He's on the bench, covering 10 allegedly, but just covering a range of positions. positions, along with Pataya and Tate McDermott covering the back line. I think it's a
fairly versatile backline cover, because Pataya and O'Connor, between the two of them, they can cover every position. I'm pretty sure. So very, very good impact out there on the back line. What about forward replacements?
They still have your man Tom Robertson, who they didn't trust with any minutes last week.
We might expect another 80-minute show from Tupou or close to.
They do have Darcy Swain and Samu, who's great impact, along with Angus Bell, who's their number one loosehead. Coming in off the bench is no bad thing. And Kaitu'u again on the bench covering hooker.
There you go. A good team for the Wallabies. Argentina then have gone with Gigana Montoya and Medrano, similar, same front row. Alemano and La Vanini make up the second row partnership this week.
There.
Gonzalez, or that's Juan Martin Gonzalez, Kramer and Matera rocking the number 8 jersey again, as he had done. I don't know if he'll be in a scrum cap as he was last week, but he'll be out there. And the back line, same as reward the form with some continuity. We have Bertranu and Carreras retains his 10 jersey. Then you have in the centres Chocobaras and Sinti, much like last week, and Buffelli on one wing, Cordero on the other, with Malia at fullback. So it's actually pretty similar team in terms of what they've named as well. And then on the bench, who we got? They got
a number of different options. They got another Carreras covering the back three, Mateo Carreras. They got Miotti covering 10, Gonzalo Garcia covering 9, Guido Petty's in there covering in the pack, and then the lesser experienced front row cover Cecino, Martinez and Pierretto, who hopefully can step up, and Joaquin Oviedo covering back row, who's not a man I'm overly familiar with, I must say. Covering number 8. He's Perpignan, there you go.
And yet he's not in the top couture playing right now, even though
Facundo
Issa was busy scoring tries against Stade Francais last week.
Yeah, it's a funny one. But I must say, listen, I'm way higher up on the Pumas than I was a week ago, because they showed
a bit of ball. Carreras at 10 was a revelation. Buffelli out there looking good. They
identified what was going wrong. I mean, they were a team that was 100% defence, and the folly of it was revealed in ugly fashion in that 39-0 drubbing against the All Blacks. And it seems to have sunk in with Ledesma. They seem to have changed it. I like Matera at 8. It gives them a footballing dimension. They just have a lot more on offense with the bodies they have out there. They have guys who are offensive minded. Chocobaras is one, like his primary thought is an offensive one. Now they have Carreras in there at 10, who's also built that way, but wants to run the ball. That's where his head's at. He's a fullback / wing, and when he gets on the ball, he wants to run it. There's a bit of positivity in there from a Pumas point of view. I like the makeup of their squad, and I think it's going to make for a fun, open matchup.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to do as we always do, just preview the game from both sides' point of view and look at their winning conditions for the contest. And we're going to start with the hosts, which is the Wallabies, correctly this week, because they are at home. They'll be absolutely brimming with confidence, buzzing as only they can in terms of just waxing lyrical about their team and their coach and their pedigree right now, having rightly so, because they just beat the world champions back to back, and the second time was more emphatic than the first. They scored 4 tries against the Boks last week, which was unprecedented in the Rassie Erasmus era in terms of scoring.
Their offense is looking cleaner and cleaner every week. They're picking lines off each other. Karevi is a wonderful focal point in that regard.
They've happened upon him, because he was in there before, but when he got back from Japan, he became undeniable very quickly for them, which is nice to have headaches just clear up like that very instantly. And similarly, Quaid was a decision that could have backfired easily, and instead of that, it's been proven a revelation for them. They look very, very good right now.
They look assured. I mean, the concern for them is what happened last year when they were wide and they were shut down by what is still a very game Pumas defence. The mission is patience, as the All Blacks showed,
and discipline, because they allowed those draws to happen through their own ill discipline, as well as being wide and being shut down predominantly. They'd also put themselves in the position to win those games, and then managed to concede enough 3-pointers that the Argentinians could kick their way back into level pegging. So no repeat of that. It'll be fresh in their minds, in terms of it's a big ebb beating the world champions the way they did last week. Big emotional kind of charged thing. It'll be on Rennie and the coaching team to kind of bring them back down, remind them of what happened last year when they met these Pumas, and not be complacent. Don't be sleeping on the Pumas.
No, they'll have to still be hungry. I mean, a lot of these guys are fresh. Nick White is relatively fresh. Quaid Cooper's quite fresh. Karevi again quite fresh.
True.
Coming in off that Japan game. Even Ikitau, he didn't get the same amount of minutes because of all that rotating that was going on in the midfield.
There was Tamua Paisami one week, and he was on the bench.
They've managed to they're at a point at this moment in time where they're having solidity and consistency of selection and they're not wearing their guys out too much, apart from obviously Hooper, who just puts in insane work every week regardless of circumstance.
Yes,
but they need to bring that same kind of energy they had against the Bok defence. The recipe is not dissimilar. It involves just a bit of footwork, a bit of chaos to break the line, and then just the line picking and the offensive instincts do the rest.
And one offload can be enough to unstick a great defensive system.
That's right, and they've been much more clinical in the last couple of weeks than they were against the likes of the All Blacks, and it was like it's just a mindset thing. But once they break that line,
thing as well, a little bit,
somewhat. But the All Blacks scramble D is good, but it's not as good as the Wallabies made it look.
No, that's true. But the Wallabies just want to play high tempo stuff, and they revelled in being assured of their place as the quicker team on the pitch against the Springboks, and they'll be that way this time again with that forward pack the way it is for Argentina. The Wallabies will probably be the pacier side, and they'll be confident to throw the ball around and move it. They get swallowed up by the All Blacks in that game. They look a little bit more chaotic and frenetic, where the All Blacks look more assured, and it ends up painting an uglier picture than even the quality of what their play is. They just end up playing into the All Blacks' hands rather than their own. Whereas in this matchup, I think, as you said, they're not the Argentinians aren't that dissimilar an outfit to the Springboks. So in terms of game plan, they have two from the last 2 weeks of kind of case studies in how to do it right. Last week particularly, how to do it right.
100%. And the All Blacks, one of the variations that they went to constantly that did throw the Pumas out of whack was just constantly barraging the short side. The Pumas want to defend in a full to the open side
way.
They
do, and they hold their width very, very well.
Yeah, they do. But they can be caught if you go infield from the touchline and then back to the touchline and then do that again. It does kind of discombobulate them. It's not really what their system is designed to stop.
Yeah, so a lot for little Nick White, and then even McDermott coming in off the bench as well, getting a chance to fold, a chance to get the running game going a little bit and kind of catch them with their pants down.
100%. And there will be subtleties and strike moves that they'll use to look to break down what is a very solid Pumas defense. They'll have to not be silly, be more patient, don't throw the crazy pass. If they're one of the things the All Blacks did so well last week is just they broke the line, they secured possession. They made sure they had it, even if they had to restart. They were confident that ultimately they'd break them down,
or the Wallabies milk a penalty as well, failing that.
Exactly. The Wallabies need to show that same kind of discipline.
Savvy,
exactly, instead of naive, which they sometimes can be, and that's how they get themselves in trouble.
But
if I was looking at the offense, I would look at if I was to divvy out two buzzwords to their offense on the carry, it would just be footwork and speed. When you saw Tupou last week, that was kind of how he was doing it, and Karevi the week before. There was just that little bit of energy, that little bit of injection of speed with a bit of footwork that through what is they're very
been great. He's overshadowed by Hooper's amazing showings, but he's barely put a foot wrong in that number 8 jersey, and he brings exactly that footwork and speed on the line, and then is capable of an offload if he wins that contact clean or gets free. But the focal point is shift on the line, try and get an edge on the shoulder, and just
and if they can win those contacts like it was against the Boks, that's 9/10 of the way there.
If they can do it, if they can look as sharp as they did against the Boks, it'll start to look inevitable, because this Puma side are still struggling to find scores consistently, whereas the Wallaby side now flying high after 4 tries against the world champs and a defensive minded world champion side in the Springboks. They'll be very, very confident in their ability to score. If they can get Corabetti moving forward, get him in even an inch of space, and the dividends are huge. They have serious assets out there in terms of their open field running, and they're going to be on a dry track here in Queensland. It's gonna suit the way they want to play.
100%. But they need to be conscious, as it is with the All Blacks against the Springboks. They need to be conscious of the fact that this is a very good defense, and that you can play into their hands by overdoing it if they are stopping you. If they're stopping you at source, if Phillip is not going forwards, if Tupou is stopped at the gain line, that's where Cooper and Nick White needs to,
from the likes of Phillip look a bit suspect,
and that's where Nick White and Quade Cooper need to be, not the frenetic 20-year-old partnership, the assured veterans that they are, and find the deep kicks, find the 50-22s, pin them back and win the game that way. There are multiple ways that they can win this game. Their defence should be hungry to go to work on this Pumas attack, because it is a bit archaic.
It's fledgling. Well, all they've done now is pick their faster guys and their younger guys to try and throw the ball around a bit more, and it is better, but it's unstructured to the point where a structured defence like they have should be confident of their ability to shut it up, and maybe even grab a few defensive tries from their attempts to play ball ball. Like
and Jackal Steele's Hooper should go to work.
Turnover and transition will be key for them. Again, it's tempo is key. They are the quicker team on paper. They'll look to keep the pace high, try and run those Pumas ragged, run guys like Kramer around all day, guys like Alamano, guys like Lavanini, get them chasing shadows across the park, and then suddenly you might end up facing 14 men if they get a bit raggedy and throw a shot in there. That's their recipe. They will be confident because just their capacity to score these days and their capacity to play good attacking footy will mean that even if they are down 3 or 6 or even more than that, more than the score, they have the capacity to get themselves back into that game with the crowd. Whereas if they can put scoreboard pressure on the Pumas, even 3, 6, 9, it's starting to look like a long way for this Puma side because they aren't scoring the same way that
and
these teams are.
They take threes at every opportunity, which just limits their ability to score sevens because they pass up so many opportunities to do that. I do think the former game you described is the game I want to see. It's just from a mentality point of view. Their wins in the last couple of weeks were great. But I would like to see how this Wallaby team would deal with being behind against an Argentina team that was causing them problems. And whether they've evolved in the past year beyond those sloppy performances that ended up in draws, and whether they could dig themselves out of against a really tough defense.
Yeah, if they find themselves...
That's the game I want to see.
If the Pumas arrive to the pitch and the Wallabies arrive a little complacent, having just downed the Springboks, then there's potential for that to happen. But I think they'll be confident in their ability to find scores this year. I think they're a different team from last year, and their rate of progression has been very good under Dave Rennie. They were a young side last year, and the Pumas, in great form in that Tri-Nations, did a number on them twice in terms of nicking those draws, and they were a little salty after it because they kind of were scratching their head thinking they probably did deserve to win that game on balance of who played more footy, but they didn't, and they had only themselves to blame for that. So I think if they've taken the learnings from that at all, I think this year's Argentina probably aren't as good as that Argentina.
No, they don't have the same scrum. They don't have the same scrum. Like that's where Tupou starting at tight head and Belt come on, but even Slipper they should have a cut at these guys, and that would totally unsettle them because a Ledesma team with no getting demolished at scrum time is a losing team. There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah, no, it is true. Speaking of a Ledesma team, I guess unless you have anything else on the the Pumas themselves do have inroads into this game. They will be gleaning confidence from those 2 draws we were citing, 15-all, 16-all, good scrappy defensive showings, gobbling up an over-ambitious young Wallaby side, treating them to big vicious hits, strong scrummaging, strong mauling, and just really be defensively abrasive and attritional, and then take your chances when they come. That's going to be their baseline start point, is try and bring that energy. It will be nice to see a bit more building on that offense. As we were saying last week, they did answer the call. They were more enthusiastic with ball in hand.
They brought a bit of structure, brought a bit of shape, showed some urgency,
just some energy.
On the ball.
It's a simple thing like that, and you want to see more building blocks. You want to see Cheika's fingerprints start to materialise on this back line in terms of a little bit of shape, a little bit of deception, particularly off set piece. I would love to see strike moves. I think they have the pace to do them. I think there's no reason why not, the skill set, and I think it's one of the few against these regimented defences. It's one of the real inroads into being able to unpick them.
Gee whiz! You saw some of the tries that were scored in that France Wallabies series off set piece. There were holes to be found.
There were,
Ultimately, Quade Cooper, as much as he's an old veteran, if you can isolate him off a set piece,
off a scrum, you're going to find Carreras for him 1v1. If you can give him enough space, he'll try and do him.
Exactly right.
You want to try and create favourable matchups for your guys who are quick and are dangerous. Chocobaris and Carreras overloading Quade Cooper is a good recipe for this Argentina team. They need to try and find a little bit more on offense. Boffelli is still an assured presence in the backfield. They do need to try and find him. Carreras, I loved the instinct for the try to, if in doubt, kick crossfield to Boffelli. He'll probably win that battle.
Boffelli called that very well. He's a leader out there, even from the wing, and he can be a difference maker for them. One of the things that I want to see them do is manage the field way better. Their defense is good, and they can't make it a trade-off where all of a sudden their defense isn't that. That was kind of the only problem last week, was that their defense wasn't as good. And it's I would love to see them have the defense as a building block and to be able to maintain that energy all the while expanding their game. but they just they don't need to be defending as much. That's the key thing, and their territory stats are almost worse than their possession stats. They spend the whole game in their own half. They do have a winger come fullback at 10, which possibly doesn't help.
Isn't a great kicker himself in football, so
they have to kick better. They're a footballing nation, for God's sake. They have to kick their way down the field.
Chakabaris the ball, or someone
do it on the front foot.
Give Boffelli the ball. Even slot him in at 10 if you're going to put him in, and just kaboom yourself to the other end of the field, quick smart, and defend that way.
Exactly. Be defending maybe in the opposition third or in the middle third.
Yeah,
that's
where you can milk a kickable penalty that you do like to do. They definitely need a little bit more savvy in game management and just negotiating the field a bit better. Because you're right, that week 1 test, their first game against the All Blacks, was bizarre, because you'll never see a team defend as well against this All Black team as that showing. And yet they still ship loads of points because they spent 90% of the game defending them.
Yeah,
and you just
defending
can't do
their
that.
red zone. In fact,
and they for all that they stuffed 10 would be certain tries, they still let in a load of other tries because you just can't do that. And the Wallabies are a similar equation in that way. They will find tries quickly if they're there. Corabetti will just take one instantly. So the equation is similar. You're going to try and shut them down for large periods, but if you spend more than 60% of the game defending this team, they will find scores against you, and you're probably not going to be able to find enough scores to scrub them out on the scoreboard yourselves, because you're a bit more meandering and a bit slower and more deliberate about the way you build a score. It would be nice to see a bit more game management, a bit more game control, and leaders. You have bookended, you have Montoya as captain, you have Matera as number 8 and a leader in that pack. They need to rein in their raging bulls, because between Alemano and Lavanini and Kramer there are a few liabilities who are very useful tackle monsters, tackling machines.
Yeah,
if you can direct
big moments and games,
if you can direct them the right way and channel their energy into productive use, they can be ferocious, and they were last year in both of those draws. Guys like Kramer were monstrous in their showings. But you can't let them be unhinged, and because it only takes a moment to get a red card that can change a game.
And both of those guys you mentioned, Montoya and Matera themselves, will need
there's
big
some
games.
of the more they will need big games, but they're two of the more cerebral kind of thinkers in that pack. They're a little bit more. They are leaders. They're both good choices as captain and have been before. They need to be the calm in that chaos to all of those raging bulls either side of them.
No question. But from Matera's point of view, the work rate matchup against Michael Hooper, being able he tries to do a similar thing. He tries to have that energy.
He's probably a little bit more physical and barrel chested, but he's nowhere near as cardio wise.
I'm not even sure if he's more physical. Hooper's physicality is crazy for a man of his stature. So I like Hooper at the moment is unrivaled near enough in the back row. Matera, it's a huge job to kind of match that energy, to be that disruptive guy that we know he can be. And little technical things like they haven't adjusted to the interpretation at the breakdown.
There's no more rolling. Jeez, they've given away a few crawling penalties themselves as well, and stuff like that is just. Stop doing that. You a prerequisite to winning this game is to be a clever side. Try and outfox the Wallabies and frustrate them.
They haven't been that since
they have not.
They've
looked pretty dumb a lot of the time.
They weren't even clever when they beat the All Blacks.
No, they were.
Sanchez was the one.
He was wily in his ability to kick them into the right areas, which is something vital to their chances if they're going to play the way that they are. But realistically, what we're hoping to see is just their defence be as solid as it has been at times, and marry that with a more developed offence and more danger. Boffelli kicks the place kicks because he's unbelievable at it. He is their best striker of a dead ball on the team, so he becomes a big leader in that back line. They want to be assured. They want to try and control the tempo themselves by keeping it down, set piece oriented. If they can get a maul going, they can kind of they just want to manage cardio, because their forwards are big lumps who will if the ball in play time is too high, they will gas out and it will be a problem for them. So they want to try and wrestle control of that off the Wallabies. And watch them be frustrated. Get that murmur going in the crowd that you want to hear as an away team. You want to hear disgruntled Wallabies going offside, something like that is music to their ears. Whereas if they're waltzing Matilda back there, that's probably curtains.
It is indeed, no question. And with all of that said, what's your take? How's this going?
Curtains, I do back the Wallabies to get this one done. I think the Pumas might surprise them at the beginning. I think the opening quarter could be a little bit of a bit of a
throwback to the June test or the July test.
something like the Pumas coming out firing and the Wallabies being a little bit off at the beginning. But I do have confidence in this Wallaby side under Rennie that I think they're just a better team than Argentina this year, and I think it's no more complicated than that. I think the better team will win in this instance, and I think it'll probably be 2 scores.
Yeah, I find it hard to disagree. I definitely there's a possibility of the Pumas doing something. I think they have enough talent out there. If they can do a pull your pants down kind of performance.
If they get a plucky like what you were citing with the Springboks, like our pride in our jersey and all this, like they haven't. Like they did beat the Six Nations champions in Wales in their things, but they won't be under any illusions. Like it was a B team short of their Lions and
at season's end.
Yeah, so they haven't really delivered anything this year, and it is mid World Cup cycle, so maybe there's something to that. But if they do get plucky and defiant, then that's the way that they unstick the Wallabies.
They do always target this fixture. It is their routine fixture that they target at season's open. So from that point of view, they're well warm now. They can't really complain a lack of prep time anymore.
Sure,
they've plenty of reps in from everybody, so if they are going to deliver a big performance, it will be in one of these next 2 weeks. We haven't seen it yet. Maybe it happens, but no, I think like you, I'm very confident.
I see several pictures to the Wallabies winning, whereas I only see 1 or 2 ways that the Pumas do manage to drag it out. And if the Pumas win, it's a 1-score game, but if the Wallabies win, it could be 1, 2, 3 scores potentially.
Yeah, and yet last year 25-15
could be another
Blacks,
17-all draw this time around. How's that?
Who knows? Yeah, no, I think I'm with you. I think I back the Wallabies in this one. But
who you got?
Let us know. Yeah,
down
absolutely.
Below, drop them in the comments, and we'll be sure to check them out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway. Well, listen, we'll move on that graceful transition.
Sweet.
Yes, so that is the Rugby Championship, parked, sealed off. We have 1 more week of reviews and previews next week to cover off the Rugby Championship, and be sure to join us next week as we'll be previewing the next round of fixtures / reviewing the first round. We'll be looking at South Africa, New Zealand and Argentina, Australia, and we'll see how those games go as well, in light of what's going to happen tomorrow, that you'll all enjoy. But for the meantime, we're going to move on. We're going to look actually at the Women's Rugby World Cup qualifiers, and if you've been following the show, you know that there's been this for this wonderful battle between 4 nations.
Very similar levels of nations scrapping to get
very
in.
Very much, no, indeed, and your scepticism about the Scots did not bear fruit
at all.
No. In fact, what did part of the reason that result was so stark is because the Italians are the most skilled team in this, but Italy, Scotland, Spain and Ireland have played out a absolute slugfest. They've had 4 games so far. Each team has 1 win and 1 loss.
All teams are on 5 points in the table.
It's right in the balance. I think it's advantage Ireland right now because Spain and Italy playing each other. It's conceivable that they take points off each other, and Ireland know that a bonus point win over Scotland,
which is something precedented. They did it in the Six Nations earlier this year.
Will likely see them home.
Yeah.
Although
Scotland have rejuvenated their campaign as well.
They
after
have,
that.
And the Italians, despite losing last week, the 2 results I should mention from last weekend: Italy women 7, Ireland women 15. Come on, much better from them this week. And then Spain women 22, and the Scottish women rocked up with a shock win, getting a late score to stay away from the Spaniards, and the Spaniards couldn't respond with a score of their own. 27-22 is right, and that was a huge result and put it all in the mixing pot.
Spain will be a bit frustrated at having coughed up what was a very advantageous position, having edged Ireland, who were seen as the favourites going in. They've now coughed up that bit of impetus, and they're back into the melting pot with everyone else. Italy similarly looked imperious in week 1 when they were hosing Scotland. They couldn't, as much as they were a better passing team than Ireland, undeniably they passed the ball better. They weren't able to sit Ireland's D down at all, and Ireland actually gobbled them up a fair bit on defence.
Ireland's D was excellent, and that's what won them the game. They ultimately did get the scores that they needed to win, and it was much better from them.
An awesome Bavian Parsons break where she beat 7 women, including hurdling one of them towards the end, and then they flashed it out to the other side and Murphy Crowe gets in. It's winger to winger, good rugby. That was great to see from a selfish green-eyed point of view.
It was miles better, and just with so much at stake, it is just a very tense. All of these games are playing out with a lot of tension. There's no doubt in my mind that Italy are the most skilled team in this group, but they might also be the most naive.
Yes, they try and do it from everywhere.
With
no
kicking game. They just
refuse
don't
to
kick
kick
the ball.
Everything. They'll run it either side of their 22.
think Japan, was it either in the early years of Eddie Jones or maybe slightly before then, they adopted like a no kicking policy to build up the skill set, and it did ultimately work once they brought in the kicking, but for a few years it was just madness, and they were just playing themselves into all kinds of trouble in their own half.
Defensive teams are delighted, like teams like Ireland that only love kicking you the ball and letting you tuck yourself out,
and that's kind of what happened in this game. Italy couldn't find the seams. They tried, they were industrious, but they couldn't break Ireland down, and Ireland's defence got on top of them, and that was obviously very exciting from our point of view. And then Scotland coming back, bouncing back from that tough loss they had to Italy, getting the win against Spain, and now they have a showdown against Ireland this week. The two games on Saturday, Italy are going to take on Spain. That's a curtain raiser at 2:00.
Ireland and Scotland. Ireland and Scotland will both know what the equation is going in. That's a tacit advantage being second up, knowing exactly what the equation is as you go into kick-off. But all of those games taking place in Parma, as they have done so far, in the home of Zebra Rugby, and it's looked lovely there. Perfect conditions for rugby games, and we have really decisive fixtures coming up. Only one team secures their spot to the World Cup. I think second might go repechage. But it's tough. It's a tough old gauntlet, and all four of these teams rightly feel that they should be there.
And a loss is devastating. A loss for any team in these two games is devastating, and any team could lose. I think Ireland are the favourites going in against Scotland. Italy, Spain could go either way, although I do fancy the Italians in that one. But it'll be very interesting to see. That's Saturday afternoon in UK and Ireland time, 2:00 and 5:00. That's 3:00 and 6:00 local time. Unfortunately, I'm actually going to be in the Aviva Stadium watching Leinster at the time of the Ireland match.
Why is it clashing with the Leinster match?
Yeah, just because.
Just to get at
unfortunate reasons. Just to bother me, that's right. But sure, listen, I can't complain. I'm going to be going to a rugby match live, so I mean,
that's exciting.
Just take the wins as they come.
This is true. But we will hopefully take a win if it comes here. I'd bite your hand off for it. They put themselves within a great position with that great performance against Italy, Ireland, and I hope they follow through and see it through. But it's to the better team go the spoils here, because it's 5 points each, 1 win, 1 loss each.
I think a bonus point win for anyone will be enough. I doubt we'll see 2 bonus point wins.
So I'd be surprised.
That is the fear for Ireland. The fear for Ireland is that they aren't offensive enough, and that they beat Scotland and beat them well, but don't get their bonus point, and the Italians
if Italy, or if Spain show up.
Spain are less likely, but the Italians, if they can get on top of the contact area, as we saw against Scotland, they can score loads of tries. They can score in packs, and so the Italians are still the danger.
A little bit tame, then it could come up Italy as well. But all to play for in that one, and just a really good tournament, a good very, very cutthroat tournament that we've had here in this round robin. As we were thinking going in, that it's like, these are similarly matched teams. This is going to be a bit of a bloodbath, and it has been so far. Scalps for everyone.
And everyone's shitting themselves.
That's true.
There's such nerves out there as well. It's crazy. I mean, the stakes.
You forget that a lot of these girls are amateur as well. Like you look at the game, and it's like it looks a little bit like rugby from a different era sometimes, when the way that they move the ball. But then you can't fault the hustle and how much it means as well. You look at full time, and the Scottish women absolutely going balubas when they'd secured their win. So a really great product this tournament, and to the victor goes the spoils.
And all available to watch on the World Rugby YouTube page.
That's right. They're being live streamed there as well. So we're going to move on now to club footy, which there's a fair bit to get into. We're going to start with the top 14, as it is kind of furthest along. We've had week 3 was last week, and we do have a few results from that one. Biarritz beat Perpignan at home.
No, they did not. They beat Racing.
Oh, Racing
at home. That was an incredible result.
That's right.
They managed to do Racing in at
Biarritz have started the season really well, coming up from the Pro.
They look good. I'm very excited about Biarritz and their progress. Also excited about Brive putting 30 points on Pau as well. But the theme continues to be home field strength. Yes. The only real major surprise this weekend was actually Cast failing to win against Bordeaux Bègles.
That was right.
And that came from
23-all draw.
Most horror show tackles you'd ever see. Did you get a look at that tackle? Jeepers. Just the jumping, flying approach to tackling. Like the funny thing is, if you freeze frame it back, like, it might have been okay. Like in another era, you might have got away with it, because it was it was
a lower contact.
The contact was actually around the shoulder, and then
he hit him in the air though,
and he did wrap his arms. But the guy actually, he wasn't in the air in the process of gathering the ball.
Right.
So I mean,
it was not helped by the fact that he was a halfback.
It was a little late. It was Luku, but the problem with the tackle was that the guy's technique was to turn himself into a flying torpedo and fly really high into him. And I mean, like, that technique from a bygone era, but it was one of the craziest looking tackles, and it probably, on balance, just for the look of it, a deserved red card.
No, it did.
Not one that needed the slow-mo replay.
No,
just,
and yet it got it all the same. Yeah, he did get that treatment. So that was a 23-all draw, the only draw of the weekend. The only away win actually came from Toulouse, again, getting it done in Montpellier, 17-15.
How good
couple of Entimac tries in there. Yeah, they look very, very good.
Entimac getting himself on the score sheet quite a bit. He's up 3 on the season now. That's some serious going. But that was
they look like they mean business to Toulouse. Similarly, actually, was it Lyon, who you were citing as looked like a very polished team? They were way too much for Perpignan, 47-3. Perpignan, unlike Biarritz, have come up from the Pro D, and they do look a Pro D side at the moment. They're struggling with the pace and the power of all these teams. And similarly, Toulon on Sunday, the only Sunday game, 38-5 win over Stade Francais, in which Parise was playing basketball and scoring, and you had Facundo Issa, as we were highlighting, not in the Argentina camp, but running in tries. Stade Francais actually are sitting at the bottom of the pile. I know Racing or La Rochelle, even Rogers La Rochelle, did lose at home or lose away to Clermont 23-22, putting them to 0-3 to start the season.
Rogers Chargers.
Although they do have 2 table points, I believe, which pushes them ahead of Stade, who are on the bottom with 0 donut.
There's a long way to go in the season, but that is clearly a rough go of it for Rogers Chargers, and it's going to be a different
little bit of because it was Rog versus John O'Gibbs. So it was Gibbs gets the bragging rights after that meeting. It was in the Marcel Michelin, which is home advantage. But on the flip side, I mean, you could be very harsh on Rog. There aren't too many tougher ways to start a season than Toulouse away against Racing in the U Arena, followed by away in Clermont. I mean, that is a pretty rough start to the season. It's as tough as they get, and it hasn't gone well for them. Plisson was at 10 again. He was kicking place kicks pretty well, but I'm not certain about his control. I don't understand that call from Rog. He's put a lot of faith in that guy, and I just don't know if he's going to get the rewards ultimately. But early season teams of optimism. Montpellier are one, even though they did have the home loss. They did lose, but they are moving the pill much better than they have been. They are actually playing a bit, and actually that goes across the board. The standard of rugby looks very, very good. They're all trying to play an attacking brand. They are all still mighty physical and have a good set piece. But they are trying to run the ball around in the more recent years, and the ball and play time has gone up. So the Top Couture is an exciting product as ever.
More and more tier 2 players, as I always like to point out. Jalagonia starting for Biarritz, Johnny Dyer starting for Biarritz, 2 class tier 2 players in that meaty pack winning games. You do love to see it as well. So just all kinds of loveliness going on in the Top Coutures. Great start to their season, and looking forward to the games this weekend. I think the pick of the bunch, there's a few. La Rochelle against Biarritz is going to be a good game. Racing v Lyon is probably the game of the weekend. That's really interesting. Although there is Toulouse Clermont, although right now that is almost, you'd nearly say, a mismatch.
Racing or Perpignan will be hosting Toulon, hoping to get a win. I would hope that they should show something. Bordeaux versus Brive could be a tight one as well in classic kind of Top Couturesian fashion. It could be a bit of an arm wrestle, I reckon.
That's not my game. And my games are the ones
Stade Francais at home against Castres.
Not a chance.
Castres probably getting their start to the season going, and they have started very well, Castres, and they are always a sleeping giant in barrage time. So there's good dynamics going on coming into week 4, but early going, you're looking at teams like Toulouse.
Week 4 already. They've really rattled ahead.
They do. They start very early, so they do. But in other news, shifting over to England, we had the Premiership kicking off as well, week 1 in the books, and some interesting showings. The curtain raiser was the Bristol Bears up against the newly promoted Saracens, or the freshly re-promoted Saracens, in Ashton Gate, in Bristol's home patch, and it was 26-9 to Sarries.
It was a weird performance by Bristol in this game. They
did not look good.
They kicked a record amount of ball in that first half, and then they were the ones to blink. Like Sarries were like, great, let's play a kicking game. It was like 9-all before anybody tried to attack, and then they did try to attack Bristol, and outside of Piatow, who was all class and the only only guy who looked like he might spark something. Obviously they were without Daragh again. Like outside of that, they just got swallowed up.
They get very lateral at their worst. They get a little lateral and they get a little frenetic, and a defence like Sarries can gobble them up.
And they did.
Yeah.
It was mighty impressive. Away win in Ashton. It was a real statement. It was a real statement win.
In terms of starting a season on high, an away win in Ashton Gate is going to do that. Other big results, Leicester Tigers put on a mighty show for the Welford Road crowd. 34-19 drubbing of the Exeter Chiefs, and they did it in imperious fashion. They were playing some lovely stuff. Nadolo absolutely charged, bull rushing through the middle was one of the highlight scores. Kind of flashbacks to when they had your man
Alasana Tuilagi,
the original Tuilagi, when he was out there at 11 and the Welford Road faithful will definitely remember him, but it was shades of him in Nadolo absolutely bulldozing through the midfield and then finding nice passes, and they're running in on the back of that. Yeah, they got underway in an impressive fashion. Exeter and Bristol losing on opening day, not something you normally see in recent years.
Yeah, well, it definitely upsets the apple cart a little bit as far as who's going to win. I think Quinn's got a very important win away at Newcastle. It was a tough game for them, but they got out of there with a win, which is a great start for them. True. They have Tommy Allen filling in at fullback, and they've recently signed on Esther Hazen.
That's right.
Like, they're still the champs and still in a good position.
True.
And Sale got a tough home win against Bath as well.
20 points to 19. That was in the balance.
They had a lead of about 17. They were led 17-0.
Yeah, Bath had a kick to win it, actually. They had a young 18-year-old, I think. He was in off the bench, and it was one of those ones where I don't like the decision, because it was on the angle. It was just nearly 50 metres out in terms of, it was at near the halfway line and on the angle, and he ended up just floating it to the right, and it didn't make it, and it was like,
it was a Reece Hodge of an effort.
Well, yeah, was it the right thing, or should they have gone to the corner and tried to milk a different penalty?
You wouldn't have liked anything they did. They were 17-0 down, and they kicked threes, and it did damn near work for them. They went 17-3, then they went 17-6, then I think they went 17-9, and then they got 17-16. They finally got a try. They did manage to turn the balance, and Sanderson was definitely sweating on that touchline.
He was saying in his post-match that it's like, we always make it difficult, even in games we're in control. We seem to make it dramatic for our own sake. And it's like, good for you to watch, but less so for me.
Yeah, indeed.
But they did manage to get home in that one. Worcester got off to a winning start, which is not something you can always say. 36-24 win over London Irish at home.
Irish and Gloucester starting as they mean to go on with tame losses.
Yes, Northampton actually 34-20 win over Gloucester as well. The Wasps were the team with the bye in week 1 as well. But yeah, some interesting games. Definitely the statement win of the round was from Saracens on day 1.
Yeah,
closely followed by that Leicester Tigers showing, because that was mighty impressive against the Exeter Chiefs.
Yes, Sarries themselves have the bye this week, but there are the pick of the games. Really, possibly Wasps in their first game up against Bristol. It'll be interesting to see how Bristol respond.
Dynamic game, yeah.
And then we'll have Gloucester Leicester as well on the Friday night, which will kick things off, which will be a good game as well. But quiet enough week as far as the Premiership is concerned.
Exeter v Northampton can be a good game.
Potentially, but probably Northampton will let you down in that game. They'll just lose tamely.
No.
Yeah, they will. If you're going into that game, we're hoping to see a competitive
London
match.
Irish v Sale Sharks.
Not
the
interested.
Aspirational offence of the Irish up against the very capable defence of the Sale Sharks.
Yeah, probably an away win there, I would say.
Okay.
We're going to move on now, because we have a brand new competition to discuss, and we will discuss it more as the weeks go on. I mean, we're just touching on this stuff, because obviously the Test rugby takes precedence, and so we're just really going to dip our toes in. But the Ultimate Rugby Championship, the URC, does kick off this weekend. It involves our own charges, Leinster, of course.
Back in the mix.
From that perspective, we do watch the game, and there's going to be some very, very interesting games. I mean, the whole thing is interesting. It's 16 teams, 4 conferences. Then I think you play each team, once, and then you play the 3 teams from your own conference an extra time each, and then that's 18 games in a regular season. Then you have the knockouts. I believe the top 8 of 16 get into the knockouts,
rendering the whole season a little bit moot. It should probably be a barrage system, but it's only the first one, so it's open to tweaking as well.
It's fine. Keeps the dynamics alive. But as far as this week's games are concerned, I mean, it'll be interesting to watch this competition develop as it goes on. I know Jay-Z's involvement with his sports group has piqued people's interest. It's been interesting to see those guys talk about what they want to get out of the game. They've hyped up their social media game. They've hyped up what they think they're going to bring, how they can make rugby appeal to the sort of younger market and demographic, and they're talking all kinds of interesting things.
Talking a big game.
They're talking a big game, so it'll be interesting to see how well it's promoted and
presented and packaged and all that. Considering some of the air sport coverage we've been treated to of the Pro 14 over the last few seasons.
I've been watching the NFL since the NFL came back, and they are I mean, you can criticize the NFL for a lot of things as an organization, but their promotion and social media is incredible.
Yeah,
like it's on another planet.
Yeah.
They
don't do 2-minute highlight packages like the rugby world do.
They do incredible highlight packages, but they explode all kinds of awesome content. They release a montage of everyone of every week mic'd up, so you can hear the players talking and some of the coach interactions. And they keep some of it at bay. Like I'm pretty sure it goes through a screen check where like nothing too bad is given away. There's like an agreement,
trade secrets or anything. like that.
or painting bad guys in a bad light if they lose their temper and curse or something. But it colours it, and they get massive views on YouTube.
They're also
and
just
else.
In terms of your average NFL game, it's not a fully fair comparison because the ball is in play for larger periods.
No, but I mean it doesn't matter.
But the stoppages are better. Feel like the graphics department. I know there's more money thrown at it, but like one of our little musings is something I'd wait to see. It probably will be the MLR would be the first time I'm hoping to see it. But it's like the first scrum comes round and loads of people complain about the gap in play when the scrum is going and the clock's still ticking. But you can imagine an American style presentation going like, and our first scrum is brought to you by Bud Light. Way. And it's like, and here's our front row, and then the guys come up animated and introduce themselves, and then he gets you excited about what's going to happen.
Dialed in. I mean, that's it. They
some of what Americans do is right. It's tough thing to admit.
Oh no, they do sports coverage class, like especially in the NFL. But that's it. Like I would love to see commentators get into the weeds there. Like you listened to Austin Healy last week. Like actually in that Bristol Leicester game, like he was on BT Sport doing commentary, and he was just whinging. Like he said, they have to stop kicking. This is they just have to stop kicking. And he just kept saying that as it was a kicking battle. That was kind of what had emerged. But like it's
groaning.
It's
in
just
the
terrible. Yeah. It's terrible to have a guy on comms who's just like has no enthusiasm for the game, and it reinforces this. It's kind of crap. And like rather than giving it its own colour and selling it, exactly. I think part of your job has to be to sell it and to give people that understanding. And it would be great to see commentators kind of go in depth on. Oh, this is the first scrum matchup of the day. We'll see this guy up against this guy. It's going to be a very interesting wrestling match. This guy has whatever percentage.
Scrum wins on own feed. All those Americanisms of stats coming out the wazoo.
Exactly. It'd be a great way to colour it. But I think to tether it back to the URC and the whole Jay-Z thing and their sports group, I think it'll be interesting to see how they try to engage the younger market and what they do on social media. Whether there's
presence,
anything
what's the
different.
YouTube presence is their new
I think like mic up the players, mic up everything, and release all kinds of content on social media and pepper it out there and release stuff that could go viral. Obviously the class plays, you got to push them out there, you got to release proper punchy highlights, you got to get the crowd volume up, you got to get the commentary teams right, all of that stuff has to be on point to sell the game properly, and that's what they're talking about doing. So it'll be interesting to see them do that. But
that's a macro that's an aside and a season wide and beyond even intrigue as to how the URC brand develops. But as far as the games, I suppose the real intrigue this week, like there are some good games. I mean, like Cardiff Blues v Connacht and Ulster v Glasgow, those are good traditional pro 14 fixtures, and Celtic League way back when, those are good games. But the intrigue really here is seeing how the SAFA sides stack up when they meet.
That's right, and they're all kind of fun. They're all, like it right down from the Lions playing Zebra.
That's interesting.
Like that's the first team that kicks off the round. Zebra are a tricky team, especially away from home, but they are like an eminently beatable team.
Yes.
And I think it'll be a bad omen for the SAFA sides if the Lions rock up to that game and don't show up and lose.
Yeah, well the Lions, it's concerning that they didn't make the Final Four in the Currie Cup just gone. It was the Griquas that ousted them there, so like hopefully they'll arrive to the pitch. But that's the first one. That's on Friday evening that's happening. But then on Saturday we have a few of them. Benetton welcoming the Stormers. Benetton looking to keep their 100% record against Springbok club side going when they host the Stormers on Saturday afternoon. That's at 1:00, the early kickoff, and then followed by our own charges, Leinster v the Bulls at the Aviva Stadium. Gonna be a mighty contest. That's like two top college.
Yeah, well, indeed, teams. It's the champions of the Pro 14, whatever it was from last year, up against the champions of the Currie Cup and the champions of Super Rugby Unlocked and the champions of the other Currie Cup and the champions of whatever else.
South African champions, I guess.
Yes, kind of correct. Well, they've won like 8 trophies against the same team.
Not the Rainbow
Cup. But not the Rainbow Cup.
Yes.
But that'll be a very interesting game, and I'll be curious to see. Then Munster Sharks is also fun as well. That's the runners runners-up battle between...
That's it, but that is headlining. We have Leinster Bulls is at 5:15 Saturday, and then it's 7:35 kickoff, the traditional Pro 14 kickoff time for Munster v Sharks as well, which is also fascinating. Two traditionally defensive-minded teams.
The Sharks named their team defensive-minded. I mean, that they named that centre partnership of Marius Lowe and Werner Koch again, who were just so bad in that final, so incredibly bad in that final in terms of the spaces they gave up, and they'll have to have a look at themselves and try and deliver a much better performance away from home for the sake of their nation. I mean, there's a chance they could be wounded warriors if the Springboks take another loss, a third loss in a row, and all of a sudden these SAFA teams who have not instilled confidence in the South African rugby community go behind. Like, they are a prideful bunch, South African rugby, and they will be looking to respond. They don't tend to spend too long down in the ether, and from somehow in some place they pull out a performance, and I'm definitely expecting. I'm not sure quite what I'm expecting. I think they could start slow, they could start bad, but if that's the case, I expect them to get better soon, and I ultimately they will be competitive.
Oh yeah, when their Boks are back and stuff like that.
Yeah, even just long term,
well.
I think ultimately they will look to be competitive. It's a point that Razzie is massively focused on. It has been lost because of the whole pandemic, and then the Lions tour focus that just took over. Kind of
parked, but his pet project, which was working, you harken back to the opening of Super Rugby in 2020 before we locked down, and you had big performances from the likes of the Sharks, led by in the centre and stuff. Out in New Zealand they were putting performances in, and it was just, they started the season really well with a cohesion and more of a focus on being prickly and tough to play against. Now they have since kind of put that to the back burner because, as you say, the Lions tour took focus and took precedence, rightly, but I think it will be something that in the long term he's looking to plan to kind of build up and kind of improve the general level of their provincial sides. But also just from the point of view of the tournament, like the Pro 14 was in desperate need of rejuvenation and an injection of quality. We were frustrated as Leinster fans watching it, watching and feeling a little bit smug or like not correct in saying, like, looking at a Leinster team win with a bonus point and say that was a poor game.
I wasn't
and a poor
smug.
showing.
I was worried, and I would still be worried, and there's a part of me that doesn't even know how I want this Bulls game to go. I mean, I want us to win, don't get me wrong, no question, but I want to see the Bulls test us. I want to see us start, I want to see us on our heels. I want to see us face something that we don't usually face at this stage of the season.
The injection of different quality that you need to see in the tournament.
Yeah, ultimately we do need...
You need to have tests before they arrive in Europe.
And we need to know our weaknesses before it's too late.
Yeah.
And we need to have them exploited, and then so we can build from them. And that's very selfish talking from a Leinster point of view, but Leinster start every season wanting to win a European cup, and at the moment, that's not likely. Going into this season, the French sides are cut above what we're doing in the URC and in all of those countries. They're just better right now, and that's a tough pill. And even probably the English side, some of them are in a better place. So Leinster need to find out their weaknesses, and they need proper tests so that they can be game ready for those European games, because that is the barometer against which we judge ourselves.
Yeah, and same is true for Munster and Ulster and Cardiff and Ospreys, and all of these teams will be hoping for European pedigree, be it in the Champions or Challenge Cup. That's kind of the benchmark, and it is nicer when you can have a few cobwebs knocked off and a few weaknesses exposed at the domestic level, and hopefully the injection of these SAFA teams can introduce a dynamic where that happens more often.
Pick a number. How many SAFA wins this week?
Either 1-3 or 2-2.
And the 2 would be Stormers and Lions in Italy.
Yes.
2 wins in Italy, 2 losses in Ireland. You're pretty sure that neither side is going to go to Ireland and win on week 1.
I'm pretty sure that.
Although they are probably more game ready.
They are. I can see a potential for an undercooked Leinster or Munster being caught with their pants down from a more match sharp team.
But I don't think it likely.
I don't think it likely. Whereas I do think there's someone like the Lions rocking up to Zebra, to be honest, is the one I'm looking at. You could be caught out. Zebra is a team that have caught a few of us out. We won 3-0 out there at one point. It can be an absolute scrap out in Zebra a lot of the time.
And the SAFA teams can fall into those, and then the Stormers. You just don't have a clue.
I don't know what to expect from them. I don't know what to expect from Benetton in week 1 without Garbisi. I don't know what to expect from any of that. So I'm maybe 2-2, maybe 1-3. disappointing result is 0-4, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it more likely that one of them gets a win than none of them.
I would think so. Jeez, if they go 0-4 and lose to the All Blacks, they're in a rough spot.
That's a bad weekend.
The whole
for
media
rugby.
world, who's been so annoyed at them for winning all this time, will have a field day feasting on their corpse.
Instead of writing obituaries for the game, you can just write obituaries for the Springboks.
Absolutely. But listen, we're going to move on as well. There's actually other domestic rugby in Europe to talk about. There's the Rugby Europe Super Cup, which kicked off for its first game over the weekend. The Netherlands team Delta put on a big win over the Belgian team Brussels. It all kind of went how you expected. The Portuguese team 34-19, a win over the Iberians from Spain, and that was needless to say the prettiest game of the weekend, and there were some lovely Portuguese tries in there.
The Portuguese just playing lovely rugby.
They are coming just like those South American teams. Portugal are coming. They're coming with the scythe, knocking on the door. They're on the way. The Portuguese, big fan of them. And then the Russian derby was won by NSI STM, who beat Lokomotiv 22-6.
All home wins, crucially, and actually this week it's 3 games again, but it's the same matchups, just flipping home the away. So you have Lokomotiv Russia versus NC STM, all in Russia. Brussels versus Delta in Brussels this time, and the Iberians versus the Lusitanos in Spain this time. So we're having fixtures, kind of reverse fixtures, and actually Tel Aviv Heat and Black Lion from Georgia still unable to compete. I think
next month.
Yeah, it's from October is when they're scheduled to compete, so they will catch up.
Yeah, so that's that league basically. I was watching it, it's very congested in terms of where it's operating. It's gonna say take the back burner of the casual rugby fan from anywhere which isn't from these places. It'll have to stand on its own 2 feet and work from the grassroots of these clubs. That's the way it's going to be watched. Obviously, it's great that they're broadcasting it on Rugby Europe, guys like us can take a look at it.
Indeed, and guys like yourself, if you're interested in Rugby Europe TV or their YouTube channel, post a few highlights, which is good to promote it as well.
100%, and it just gives you a flavour of it. From what I saw, there looked to be some crowds there, but that is the key here, is that it stands on its own 2 feet, that the clubs get a following, that they get their own sort of crowds and grassroots support, and that it builds
eventually
from there.
Build pressure enough to maybe force their way into the Challenge Cup down the line
absolutely.
Is the thing. But the first step was taken. They have 3 fixtures in the books, 3 results
their way
from the Rugby Europe Super Cup, and there'll be 3 more as of next week. So that's just the first step, is always the toughest step. So congratulations to the organisers for getting all that done, and fair play to the teams who secured their wins. You have a Dutch team, a Portuguese team, and a Russian team all getting off to winning starts.
Yeah, absolutely. So no issue there. We're also going to just touch on the Sevens game as well. Which was
that was a good show over in Vancouver at the weekend. The series officially underway last weekend in Canada, as it was. Gold was secured, as you said at the top of the show, by the Blitzboks, South Africa, who trounced Kenya in the All African final 38-15. It was the first All African final since Adelaide in 2008, so way back when, and only the second in series history. And yet the Blitzboks, as they often do, were big brothers to Kenya's little brothers in the Africa contest, and they had way too much in that final. Then actually our own charges, Ireland, fell to Team GB in the bronze final. I think that was 24-14 in the end, but Ireland got the last score there. It was a pretty comfortable win for GB, if I'm being honest. And Ireland did lose 3 players. I think they went into that final game shorn of 3 of their squad of 11 or 14 or something. So they were shorn of a few key men, and they definitely didn't perform as well on day 2 as they had looked on day 1. They had managed to win all their pool games except against GB. They managed to get a draw, which they possibly should have won on day 1 as well, but they didn't look as good from an Ireland point of view on day 2. And GB deservedly took bronze in that one. There was also the Fast Four, which was the women's competition with 4 teams, and that was won by Team GB in the final. It was them against USA was the final 2, and GB managed to secure that win emphatically.
And I would say I'd just highlight that Jazz Joyce, that player for the
hat-trick in the final.
Oh, she is on another planet to anyone else on the pitch, or she was in that final. She was just all over it.
She needs to go out and face those Kiwi women.
She was. I'm sure she did over the summer, but man, did she catch the eye. She was just on another level. Everything she did on offense and defense, she had an extra energy reserve. She was it was almost like a Brian O'Driscoll style of dominance, where and that's high praise, as we know, but she was just all over the pitch, and every touch a silky one or a class one or a surprisingly physical one. Her read on the game and her physical attributes was just awesome. Like she definitely the star of that tournament.
Yes.
Jazz Joyce. So fair play to her. And unfortunate for the Irish Sevens, they finished about par in fourth. It was actually their second time ever making a semi-final on the series, but obviously this was a 12-team comp with some invitational teams. I thought the Jamaicans,
although GB technically an invitational team because it's normally
I know, but there were teams like that Jamaican team who shipped 50 against Ireland and 60 something against Hong Kong and just looked bamboozled by the whole concept of rugby. Like they didn't quite understand what was going on.
No, indeed, it was amusing. There was definitely a few gulfs in standard on some of the teams, but it's still encouraging. Like Mexico in there on an invitational one as well. It's a good thing that they're doing just to revitalise the series and get it underway. And then this weekend they are staying put in Canada, but they're moving over to Edmonton, Alberta, who are going to host this one. I think the Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, Alberta, is going to be the host for this weekend's one.
Exactly, and 12 teams again, so keep your eye out for
same
that.
setup, 12 teams, and there will be a Fast Four competition with the same, although we do have slightly rejigging of the groups, I think based on last week's results. So Pool A is South Africa, Canada, Hong Kong, Mexico. Pool B is Kenya, USA, Spain and Chile. And Pool C is Team GB, Ireland, Germany and Jamaica. We'll be in with those Jamaicans this time.
Yeah, well, we were last time and it was grand. But Ireland actually, chance would be more competitive this week with a few injuries, and we've drafted in a couple of guys, including none other than Jordan Conroy. So
bolstering the squad a little bit.
Let's see if we can't just unsettle the apple cart a little bit.
That'd be nice.
And have a cut at those GB men.
Yeah.
And obviously those South Africans who
will
hope to steer clear
the best
of
team. And actually, to be honest, Kenya are fast becoming our biggest rivals in Sevens history because they spanked us 38-5 in the semi-final.
The young boys were not ready for that Kenyan physicality.
No, they were
not at all.
They were not. Kenya looked good right until they ran into their bigger brother. And that was the problem. But they'll have another crack this week. We might be getting a few more All-African finals with this setup of teams though, because Kenya do look good and they're quite a young Kenyan team. But
absolutely.
Sevens is back and it's good to have it.
Absolutely. Listen, we're going to wrap up the show now with the rugby news of the week as we do. And we have an interesting story to start with that broke today, as we're shooting obviously on Thursday and yesterday for you guys. Just this news on it's just a guidance at this stage, but the new World Rugby guidances are very interesting as pertains to contact training.
Yeah.
And this actually has ramifications for the amateur game as well.
Yeah.
But also this is mainly tethered to the elite game as well. But basically they're following a global study and player welfare definitely fuels this. They're based. Sorry, why am I stuttering like a madman? The crux of the issue is that they're basically going to suggest a maximum of 15 minutes of full contact training per week across 2 days, and then just 40 minutes of controlled contact, which would be sort of a like
scrum practice and such like that.
Exactly, and just like training drills that aren't quite full contact.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one. It's definitely like
some schools of thought are like, what? But we flogged the boys on Tuesday.
Exactly. It's a game changer. I mean, there's many schools of thought on this, but I do think that the data backs up.
It does.
A bit like a boxer or a fighter of some kind, like trying to get ready for a fight.
And that has moved as well in that game, which is kind of not tethered, but is similar in that it's contact based. They used to just do loads of heavy sparring, and now the science backs up that no, actually you should limit contact, particularly as you near fight week, and then you save it all up for fighting so that you don't injure yourself in training. And we've heard like Stuart Lancaster was involved in this. He's one of the guys, and actually Conrad Smith, who's a former All Black obviously as well, and I think he's currently head of player welfare at the government at World Rugby as well, so he's heftily involved in this too. But they've been talking for years about not as much hard contact in training, more deliberate with your full contact sessions and shorter bursts, and generally you tend to do things at either a full contact speed that you're prepping for match or a slower learning speed. You don't do in-betweens, you don't try and do that. They're getting very scientific about breaking this down, and I know that a few teams as elite clubs have signed up to be a part of this, including Leinster because Lancaster's involved, but Clermont Auvergne as well, Benetton and Southland have all kind of jumped on board.
It'll be interesting to see how they go. I mean, there's a couple of schools of thought on this. There's definitely the factor of like you don't want to be shocked by physicality.
No.
You can't be
You
shocked.
can't be undercooked. You need to be conditioned for physicality. It's a physical game, and if you come in unconditioned, that's dangerous too.
But there's probably a way to do that doesn't involve taking as many contacts. And people think this is like a game is gone debate. It's actually more of a sports science debate.
Yeah.
Like people have their own stories of being in a rugby team and saying, like, I'm sure you hear all this stuff from the 70s or from the amateur era of people saying, we needed to beat the shite out of each other on a Thursday before the match, and that's what really got us together and got us ready. And they'll tell that story.
There's anecdotal evidence to suggest that, but there's less scientific evidence to corroborate it.
And my own anecdotal evidence is actually like I've just playing at a way I'm not even close to an elite level, but that when we've had sessions like that we have expended too much energy. If we on a session on a Wednesday beat the effing hell out of each other, like we've had games where like our squad would be 2 games and we'd play each other and it'd be full contact and a few guys would take injuries and all of a sudden we'd be putting in these Herculean efforts like it's a big match, and then we'd come into the match, both sides would lose and we'd all be a little undercooked, and you're wondering why. The reason is because
you expended too much energy maybe.
You do only have a certain reservoir of energy, and it should be like a fighter, a boxer getting ready for fight week. Like he needs to peak and be at his both performative energy and physical peak for the fight,
and not before,
and not any time before. That's when he needs to deliver. And the rugby players, it's the same. And there's definitely a lot of interesting science going into how to get them.
And some of the more well stocked and well kind of drilled and well funded clubs like Leinster or like the Crusaders or like these kind of entities are more focused on this, and this has been creeping into the game just in terms of getting an edge, getting a top 2 inches, being like, we're going to control our contact, we're going to develop, we're going to listen to our sports scientists, we're going to try and be pioneering in that way. There's been that going on, and then there's the old school of the, you beat the living hell out of the boys and then you're tough and ready for game day, and there are still clubs that are doing that, and it'll be more of a shock to the system for those kinds of clubs and those kinds of ethoses.
It is crucial to say that they're just guidelines. Clubs are voluntarily signing up, but they're just guidelines at this stage, and there is obviously the added benefit of fewer injuries and fewer concussions that goes with less contact, which of course is
Joe Schmidt actually was talking about that, saying like, injury prevention or training has become a part of training in recent years has become about injury prevention as much as it is about match preparation. Sometimes you want to control your training environment such that you're not taking out key players the week of a match.
Absolutely right. But it'll be fascinating to see how the sides who adopt this go. Obviously, for no greater reason than it's always fascinating to see how Leinster go.
Yes, indeed.
But it'll be curious to see just as a collective whether they gain an edge or whether they are in fact a little shocked by the contact. But we'll definitely keep an eye on it. But it was that was definitely
the big breaking news today. In other news, we had Eddie Jones, news from the England camp. He named a 45-man England training squad with 8 potential new caps and several notable inclusions, or exclusions I should say, including the 2 Vunipola brothers, then Elliot Daly as well, and George Ford, which I know Squidge Rugby won't be happy about, but he's being ousted.
Jamie George, which I'm not happy about, but I think much has been made of these exclusions. Like, I think some of them certainly will be back in. Like Billy V, mind you, he did not look great actually. No. Even though Saracens won that game, he actually got ran over by Nathan Hughes a couple of times. Wasn't quite
a good look for a powerhouse of his caliber.
No, he wasn't quite right. But I do think, like, I'm a huge fan of Jamie George, always have been. I still think he's the best hooker in England. I think Mako Vunipola's temperament is great and his big game clutch is great, and he will be a guy they lean on. Ford is always possible he gets back involved. Daly likewise. I think too much is being made of it,
and it's being blown out of proportion. A few notable inclusions like Lewis Lina of very famous Wallaby stocks could possible to get an England cap. That'd be divisive. It'd be.
I can't imagine that. Like, I can't imagine how sick I'd feel if, like, Brian O'Driscoll's kid played for the England. Like, that would be crazy.
I'm sure the Wallabies are sickening as well. They have no love lost between them and England either as well. So that's a curious political one.
And curiously, Michael Lina's other son has moved to Australia in order to try and play for the Wallabies because that's his
Lina's favourite son.
Indeed.
So that is an interesting one. And then also Marcus Smith of Lions fame and Sam Simmons, the oft maligned one. He has made his way into the England squad on foot of his being selected for the Lions and being very impressive for the last couple of years. So yeah, there are a few notable inclusions, but it's only a training squad.
Absolutely, yeah. There's other news as well from Eddie Jones's camp. He's announced that he is finishing up. He's finishing up with England after the World Cup.
Post 2023 World Cup.
Described it as his swan song, and he's obviously done a great job with England so far, and he says he's chewing at the bit to have a go at this World Cup. He's 61 years old. I don't doubt that he will be back in rugby in some capacity after England, although it's not impossible that this is his last major test job.
Possibly,
it's possibly
maybe
up to him. He'll probably get an offer.
True. He could do something like what Graham Henry does, which is just consult with a load of nations, go back to Japan, consult with some of them, get involved in the top league. The world is his oyster. He has nothing to prove to anyone.
No,
but indeed. I would say that it doesn't tend to go that well when coaches say, "Oh, we're done after this World Cup." It doesn't tend. Certainly, the last World Cup, it didn't play out well for those particular coaches.
Didn't play out for Ireland. Who else didn't it play out for?
For the All Blacks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I quite buy that as a narrative. Do you think that's
no? It's just
I don't think there's anything to that.
No,
I think England will be highly motivated and ready to go, and it'll be a question of whether or not he can get the team right against a stacked field of quality teams, which the World Cup will doubtless have. But Eddie Jones finally to depart England in 2 years' time. Definitely some interesting news there on that. There's also just some good news out of Australia. Obviously, we were discussing at length Len Ikitau earlier on in his exploits for the Wallabies.
Only 22 years old, capped for the first time against France, and he's signed on till post World Cup for the Brumbies. He's going to be with them till 2023. Awesome. Yes,
indeed. So they kept him on for this World Cup at least, and that's definitely relieving news from the Wallabies. And yeah, he's a very exciting player, and his stock continues to rise. You'd wonder if he might have held out on his contract negotiations.
He might have got some suitors in there,
or maybe he's cashing in because his stock has just ballooned upwards because he's been so good. So hopefully he got a good deal there with Rugby Australia. There was also just some interesting news as well that the Waratahs and the San Diego Legion have announced a formal partnership. To partner all the informal partnerships that are going on between Aussie Super Rugby teams and MLR teams.
That's true.
But they're going to trade resources, trade players, trade sort of brainstorming sessions, and I don't think this is a bad thing for either side.
No, I don't think so.
I'm definitely enjoying the partnership, and I think it'll be good ultimately for USA Rugby.
That's the main thing as well. But in terms of just announcing a kind of a shared growth kind of thing, they're trying to capitalize on some good rugby coming out of the US for once. I think the Waratahs kind of need a little injection of something. I hope it doesn't amount to them just plundering players to come and play in Super Rugby, but I think it could work if it achieves a symbiosis. You could see a bit of a talent swap, and you could see guys excel in the MLR and then get to go out in Super Rugby and stuff. That's the ideal scenario for this, but it's only a fledgling thing, and kind of good spirits. Nice to see the spirit of partnership going on.
Absolutely. And then finally as well, we just have a note on the British and Irish Lions tour. Not that anybody cares about that anymore, but it was interesting to see that Ian Henderson basically had a cut off Warren Gatland. He was doing a show, I think the Ulster Rugby show on BBC Northern Ireland with Rory Best and Tommy Bowe, and the three of them, all Gatland charges, were having a right go at Gatland. Really, they were talking about. They basically said that he doesn't select players on form. That was a feeling that was present in the Lions dressing room. Mm-hmm. They talked about how tactically they got it wrong. I think one of Ian Anderson's quotes was just like you ended up, they just sort of fell into a situation where they were ending up playing into the Springboks' hands, and then trying to beat them at their own game, which of course we could all see by the end wasn't the right approach. And they ended up falling into it. And one of the problems that he highlighted as well was just that the games against the Super Rugby sides, they were like they were kicking a box kick or something, and then all of a sudden the ball would fall for them, and then there'd just be open field, and they'd throw a couple of offloads and be in, and everyone would be like, oh, the Lions are playing expansive. But then when the game itself arrived, they had to tighten right up, and it didn't work. So he was basically having to cut off Gatland's temperament, having to cut off his squad selection, and having to cut off his tactics. With Big Ian Henderson, and he's quite a mild-mannered man at the best of times, and it was interesting to see
just hear him going in on something. It's not the first time Irish guys. I know Sean O'Brien came out and kind of
and that was a different
New
one
Zealand.
because O'Brien was a favourite of Gatland's, and rightly so. But yeah, it was interesting to see Hendo's take, and there's always a drip feed, especially after a Lions tour that doesn't succeed.
Yeah.
Gatland has had his own methods, and they've worked very well from over the years. I'm not sure if he'll be too bothered by it.
No,
but he's definitely not everybody's cup of tea.
No, he's not.
It was interesting to see Hendo's point of view.
If you live your life and making no enemies, you probably haven't lived well. But yeah, no, that was definitely interesting. I guess that is it as far as news. The big news this week was the shift in the world rankings. That was the major news. Was that now it's All Blacks number 1 with the Boks World Champions at number 2 and the Wallabies at number 3. Another little headline. The Southern Hemisphere, those traditional tri-nations occupying the 1, 2, 3 spot. And congrats to the All Blacks for earning it. But good luck to the Boks. I hope they can.
Congratulations just yet. This gets resolved over the next 2 weeks.
It does. And if the Boks can strike back this week, then maybe we'll see more flip flopping on that world ranking chart. Yeah, it remains to be seen. But I suppose with all that being said, there's nothing left to do but to say, see you later, folks. That is us for the show.
Yeah, listen. Thanks very much for tuning in. It was obviously a fun one to preview the All Black Springboks game. Do remember to tune in next week as well. We'll be looking ahead to the last round of the Rugby Championship. There'll be another All Black Springboks game to predict off the back of whatever happens tomorrow in that game. And we'll also be digging in as the weeks go by into some of the club footy as well. We might take a break once the Rugby Championship wraps up, but we will be touching on the club footy as time goes by as well. And before you know it, the November internationals will be on us. The late October, there's going to be games between Australia and Japan. There's going to be all kinds of games going on, and there's also some very important World Cup qualifiers coming up as well as all of the club footy that's going on. So be sure to tune in as the weeks go by. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing what we have to say.
Ring the bell so you're notified when we upload it.
All of that good stuff, and absolutely leave comments down below.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, just put any thoughts, any opinions you have. We'll try our best to get back to you, and we do like to get a good conversation going down below as well. So if you can at all, by all means do that. But anyway, I think without much more to say, I think it's see you next week time.
That's 107 in the books, lads. We'll see you here next time for number 108.
Absolutely. Ciao. Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Europe. And he nails it.
And it's just
one and done.
Every week, and just
consistency is key.
The man.